Hei mua koe ia mātou, hei hoa, hei tautua ia mātou, mahi katoa, ko koe hei whakaratoa, i ngā kaupapa o te rā nei e, kia eke ai ki te tō mairangi o tāhau ngā atawhai. Let the grace of God be upon the works today. Let the heart of the people sing and see where things lie now. We know that times are challenging, and we ask for grace and patience as we make big decisions today, like all days. Amen.
Thank you for that. There we go. That set a beautiful tone for a huge agenda in front of us today. And I do want to welcome everyone in the public gallery, our friends from the Yacht Club and our friends from Ngāti Onioni. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. We've got a little bit of admin to do. It will only take about 5 minutes, and then we will get to our public deputations. And I'll talk about the public deputations a little bit more when I get there. So apologies for today. I have an apology from Councillor Cranston, and also I have Minister Shane Jones in town, so I will be leaving the chambers at 10:30. So we will stick to the agenda as it is, because I need to be here for the annual plan, as well as for the Disaster Relief Fund, because those are my babies. And then Josh will take over when I leave. So just excuse me if 10:30 I leave the room. So do I have a mover for apologies? Councillor Robinson, moved, seconded by Councillor Pahuruhuriwai. All in favour? Contrary, carried. Declarations of interest.
I've got possibly just a perceived conflict of interest, being a resident at Kaiti Beach when it comes to the Yacht Club.
Thank you. Can I get some advice?
By voting or not, I don't know, but that's up to everyone councils, I guess. But being a neighbour, I shouldn't imagine would be too much of a problem.
Can I, right at the beginning of our meeting, ask everyone to speak lovely, loud and clear, because people listening in online are struggling to hear us. And also, please make sure that your computers and your cell phones are turned down, so there's no dinging during our meeting. Councillor Ria, thank you.
Also for conflict of interest for the same paper for the Yacht Club, given that my mother as the chairperson is making a submission on behalf of Ngāti.
Thank you. Councillor Tupara.
Declaration on the public excluded paper, which declares it's in committee with appointments. My brother is
Thank you for that. You've got all of that, Jill. Just some advice on Councillor Foster.
So,
give me some advice on that.
Worship, it would be seen as interest in common with the public. You haven't been submitting, you're not a submitter against kinship fees, so you can participate.
Okay, so if you forgot to declare an interest, remember as we get to a paper, you still have the ability to declare that interest. By not declaring interest, you open council up to judiciary review. So I just need all councillors to be mindful. We've got a huge agenda today with lots happening. So as we get there, please make sure you just double check with yourself. You will see on page 5, 6 and 7 that we have 3 sets of minutes. Can I please have my name corrected on page 12? Thank you. Any other feedback on minutes? Councillor Telfer.
My name as well, I think.
Where's your name? You need to give a place because our names are hundreds of times through the minutes. Okay, good. Anyone else? If not, do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Foster, seconded by Councillor Ria. All in favour? Contrary, carried. So I want to take you to our action sheet. Number 1 is obviously still carried to page 16. Everyone there? So So, number one, it says the due date is today, but it's not.
Mr. Beatty, give us an update on the due date.
Mr. Beatty, we're on page 16, first item. I'll go through everything else while you check that one out. So the second one is done. So that can be marked completed. That's the GHL action. The third one has had a due date, and it's still in progress. So the due date can just be updated. And then the last one, I have a verbal update for everyone. So the Code of Conduct template, the standing orders, not Code of Conduct, the standing orders are completed by Local Government New Zealand. They are currently being peer reviewed and they will be released December 2024. So they will be reaching out to all of us, all councils, and saying, these are model standing orders, you can fine-tune them, adjust them as it suits you. So once they are released, early next year, we will be able to discuss them, fine-tune them, adopt them if we want to, don't adopt them if we don't want to. Yes?
Are we able to see a copy of that before?
It's not our job. It's Local Government New Zealand will release it in December 2024. It's not ours, it's their job.
As an individual, I can't see it.
As an organiser, as the mayor, I can't see it. Okay, next. Councillor Gregory.
I'll just, on page 18, the action item regarding the roads.
This one.
I thought that was the drains. Or was it a separate action item in another meeting? We wanted to know the portion, the culverts that are owned by council in the area.
Through your worship, that might be another committee. So this one was particularly about the state highway.
Okay. Welcome. The warmest of welcome. We've finished some of our admin. Now it's time for our public deputations. Some of you, I think most people speaking today, have made a public deputation before. So please relax. This is a space where you are here to talk to us. This is not a debating chamber at this stage. The agenda item will be debated later today when it comes up in the agenda. What we are here today is to listen to you. I've given everyone 10 minutes. So please, when you're ready, come to the front. You can take a seat here. The floor is yours to talk to anyone. Please, can we make sure the people that come to the front, they are the ones that speak. This is not an open debating space. This is a space where we give someone the opportunity to talk to councillors. Councillors might ask you some questions of clarification at the end. No debating or anything else. It's just to clarify that they understand what was said. After 10 minutes, so I'm going to invite Charlotte first, and then after that, I'm going to invite representatives from the Yacht Club to speak to us. And then later today, it will probably be around 11:30, 12-ish. It will be, the paper will come up. So Charlotte, welcome. Please come and take a seat at the front. You've made a presentation before. You don't have to come alone. You definitely do not have to come alone. You can bring whoever you need and want to bring. There we go. And we can grab more seats also. That's right, we stand. We're all good.
Tēnā tātou ko whakawhaiti nei rau i te tūnui o tēnei o tātou whare. Tēnā koutou. Representatives o tēnei rohe, tēnā koutou. Thank you for giving me 10 minutes this morning, Rehead. I appreciate it. I'm sure you've got all the documents that you need to make a decision. I felt I had to come back again today to have one more say. Kāore Te Ake Tuatarangi signed the Treaty of Waitangi sometime between the 5th and the 12th of May 1840. He signed on behalf of his people, his uri. That's all of us standing here today. He signed with the idea that he agreed that the government, the kāwanatanga, would look after their people and that he would look after his people. That looking after concept meant kicking us out of our lands. This is Pohorawiri. It meant kicking us off our lands, taking the lands right around Titirangi to the other side, to Onepoto, and redistributing to how they see fit. It was taken under the Harbour Board Act, and to this day, there's never been an apology to us, or land giving back to us, to this day. Yes, we could sit here and say, well, you know, that wasn't us who signed it. Hey, mō tātou, te Māori, my tipuna is me, I am my tipuna. So for all intents and purposes, I signed, they all signed, all of us uri signed that Treaty of Waitangi for the betterment of our uri. Me ngā uri whakatipu. So all the land was taken. You had an opportunity, and fast forwarding now, and I'm talking Trust Tai Rāwhiti, you've got our port. Your whare is on our land. Port Eastland, you stripped the whole of the port. None of that land do we live on. None of it. We come around to Onepoto, and please, I just want to reiterate, this is actually not against the Yacht Club. It isn't. Yes, we've all got people who yacht, what have you. But this is not it's about a process that was done to us that you have an opportunity to rectify today. So around Onepoto now, the Yacht Club has had 76 years of enjoying that space of ours. In 2030, we would have been removed from this land for 100 years. Arotau, 100 years. So we would have been removed from our land. So it's 2024 now, that's 6 years' time. In 6 years' time, Council, we want our lands back. Every bit that's in your name, that you have the power. And Council, we ask that you all be active in helping that happen. Right? We're going to do the same to Trust Tai Rāwhiti. We want them to be active in their display of returning lands that were taken from us under the Harbour Board Act to be returned. Because the whole of Hirini Street is not business of the port anymore. They're not doing business. Come around the other side too. But we want you all to consider that. We get that you can't be moving people out just like that. It's unfair, and we're not on about that. What we're saying is, if you give them 5 years, at least 5 years, 5 years will give us a chance, Ngāti One Hapu, who I might say aren't recipients of any Waitangi Treaty claim. So it's not as if we just pluck the money out of the sky. But we will, if you give the Yacht Club 5 years, that will give us 5 years' time, 5 years to seek changes or amendments to the various Act of Parliaments that stop you from giving it to us today. So that's really what I've got to say, is that have a good think. It's very important to Ngāti One. And in actual fact, I just want to remind the Council, Ngāti One has been one of the most active hapu in your rohe. All those things that you see around the port, but yes, they're about putting faces to our places and seeing ourselves in those spaces. But what it actually does, it gives you a good tourism buck. Hey, so please, I ask you, don't be scared of handing it back to us. We're actually really quite onto it, people. But you know, what we see is what's good for us is actually fabulous for the rest of the town, rest of our rohe. So rohe, I just want to say once more, please, have a think. I know you're going to consider a 5+5. we would tautoko 5, the first 5 year. We absolutely would object to the second 5 year. Kia ora. Oh, e waiata. Te minita Māori e whakarongo mai, ko te take o tenei, ke o mutu e, kei te mahara hara ahau, mō kupaku whenua, ki te kore he aroha, mō aku raukura, purari paka. Kia ora.
Charlotte, there's just one question from Councillor Foster.
I do have a question, but first of all, I'd just like to congratulate you and Ngāti Onioni and the fire team in particular for all the awesome work that you've done around Titirangi and Kaiti Beach or Onopoto. So fantastic and it's been really well acknowledged. But my question is, as a resident of Kaiti Beach for at least or over 40 years, should I be worried?
For what?
Well, if you want to...
We're talking today about a lease. Thank you, Charlotte.
Could I just say, in comment to that,
No, that's all right. Seriously, Councillor Foster.
Titirangi Maunga was ours. We were the mountain was us. There's a part on our maunga that is owned or run by the woman's native tree planting bit. The nook at the top was given to the mercantile company, Down the bottom, as Councillor Foster has just said, somehow, our tipuna, Te Atapo, Rutine Irwin's mother, she got ousted out of Onepoto, and now there's somehow some who are lucky enough to be living in that area. So where do we live? We don't.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, may I welcome the Yacht Club and who is going to speak today? Kia ora, Joe. Come on in, take a seat, make yourself at home. So the floor is yours, Joe, roughly 10 minutes, and then if there are any questions, there shouldn't be heaps, but the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, councillors and staff, for allowing us to make a submission on this matter. My name's Joe Martin. I'm a member of the Yacht Club and the Honorary Solicitor. Colin Shanks next to me is the Commodore. I'll just make some opening submission comments and Colin can fill in. The Gisborne Yacht Club has existed for about 77 years and has occupied the site on Kaiti Beach for 50 years. In March of last year, this council recommended that the Yacht Club be given a new lease of 7 years with 2 rights of renewal of 7 years each, but subject to the application for the lease being advertised, which resulted in submissions of an objection by Ngāti Onioni. Then the panel has adjudicated on it. There was that recommended a meeting between members of the Yacht Club, which myself, Colin and Richard Stannard attended on the 1st of July this year on behalf of the Yacht Club with Charlotte and other members of the Onioni. The hearing panel has now come back and recommended a 5-by-5 lease, 5 years with right of renewal. In the Yacht Club's view, that is inadequate for its future purposes. The Yacht Club kind of finds itself as a piggy in the middle in this matter of land ownership between the council and Ngāti Onioni. And I submit that this issue is unlikely to be resolved in the short term. given that it will require, as I understand, an act of Parliament should the council be so minded to transfer the land to Ngāti Onioni. In the meantime, the Yacht Club has its tenure, if it's only granted 5 by 5, will be very short, and it suffers as a consequence. This council has an indefeasible title of its owner of the land contained in GS5 Bylaw 1148. It's free of any encumbrance which indicates the possibility of the land being transferred to another party. That is not to say that wouldn't happen. In the meantime, the Yacht Club needs a 7 by 7 term lease to give it the necessary tenure and thus confidence required to enable it to carry on required maintenance on its buildings and other improvements during the term of the lease, which will be, as originally recommended by the council, 21 years rather than 10. Now, I'm aware that just because a club or any entity was a former lessee, it cannot expect to be granted a new lease. However, in the council's policy on that, it says that where the current occupier is seeking a reissue of an existing lease or license, the council recognises that groups will have made investments in the assets. The building, the Yacht Club building and the shed there are owned by the Yacht Club. Okay? And that's been an investment for some 50 years in those assets. And they need to be maintained. In our view, the 5 by 5 lease recommended by the council is inadequate to enable that to be done. As I say, the 3 representatives, including myself, met with Charlotte and other members of Ngāti Onioni on the 1st of July. The Gisborne Yacht Club made it very clear at this meeting that it was open to Ngāti Onioni continuing to hire the club's building and, at their request, for a longer periods than it has in the past. And that should all be on commercial terms, which Ngāti Onioni accepted at the meeting as being justified. So we are very open to Ngāti Onioni and other members of the public hiring the hall. I draw your attention to the fact that the club's footprint on this 6,000 square metre site is relatively small. It's just the club rooms and the shed. There is no fence that prevents members of the public, including Ngāti Onioni, having access to the site when the club is not using the premises. They use the premises mainly on the weekends in the period October through to May, being the sailing season. Gisborne Yacht Club adds to the amenity of the bay and the foreshore in being a long-standing recreational facility which any member of the public can join and is welcome to join, and as a contributor to the maritime safety of our coastline. I leave it on that matter that 5 by 5 is insufficient for the club's purposes, and I will now leave it open to Colin Shanks, the Commodore, to fill out some of the things I've said and add to other matters.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody, to have this opportunity. After the Yacht Club was moved to its present location, a lot of work was done by volunteers, Yacht Club volunteers, to put a boat ramp in and cut access through the reef. This facility has enabled not only the Yacht Club members to use this, but all the public. We have never opposed any of the public using the facility that we made. And it's used in many operations for rescue, search and rescue. The Yacht Club itself has been involved in search and rescue for people outside the club on several occasions. We, the Yacht Club, we believe we're very inclusive. We've regularly been training young children and adults for Learn to Sail, including Maori students. A case of this was several years ago, a boat building Learn to Sail program was held at the school, which was a great success, and a majority of those students were Maori. The Yacht Club has been actively involved with different charity fundraisers throughout the years, including the Rotary Club with its annual 5 bucket duck race. It was involved with the Terry Breast Cancer Foundation and was fundamental in bringing the America's Cup to Gisborne for display. It's been involved with the Make-A-Wish recently. A terminally ill child was given the opportunity to have a ride on a yacht, one of his wishes. And that's just to name a few. Recently, 4 of our club members volunteered their services and the Yacht Club rescue boats to run and lay the course for the Wakahama Long Distance Championships, which was, over 3 days, a lot of effort, and our members didn't even hesitate to take on that opportunity. A lot of our, we are very reliant on our haul hire for our revenue, because we've got very few members now. From 20 odd years ago, where we have a thriving club, just like other clubs in Gisborne, Tairwhiti, we're struggling. So we have to hire our haul out to the public, basically. And just for your information, 60% of our haul income comes from Maori whānau. Presently, we're actually in conversation with Ngāti Porou Surf Life Saving. They're very interested in sharing our facilities with us, and we are we're in favour of this pending results of the lease. All our rescue boats and training boats have been blessed by a Maori elder, and that was Temple Isaac. All our boats have Maori names, and this is just to show how involved we are, and we really do honour the Maori spirit. So the Yacht Club, just to finalise, the Yacht Club has immediate plans for repairs and maintenance on the hall, including a re-roof and painting of it. This has been put on hold because of, since the lease was expired in 2019, we've been waiting to see what could happen. And obviously, it's a huge expense to do this. It's very, through whatever decision is made here today. So our Yacht Club's preference is that a longer term is required for the lease. Thank you very much for hearing me.
Thank you for that, Colin. Thank you, Joe. Any questions? Councillor Gregory.
I have one question. What is the membership of the Yacht Club? How many?
Roughly.
Sailing membership is, active members is only about 30.
Thank you.
We have some associate members.
Councillor Pahuru-Huriwai.
Thank you for your presentation, gentlemen. In the event that you don't get the 7x7x7, what happens to the Yacht Club?
Well, I'm not quite sure. We're very concerned, and that's why we're here today. We're hoping that is not the case. As as it was said, and when we had our meeting with Charlotte, she reiterated that she wasn't having complaints about the yacht club. It was more with the council than with us. So we're hoping that whatever decision is made, hopefully there is still going to be some sort of amicable agreement that we can do with Oni.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Colin. Okay, so we've come to the end of our public deputations. You're more than welcome to stay, but you can also go. We will now move into our first agenda items. We'll probably discuss this. It won't be before 11 o'clock. So I would think we'll work through stuff now till we get to morning tea, 10:30ish, and then probably after that, but it might be later as well.
So when you actually come back to discuss this issue?
I was just saying not before 11 o'clock. So at this stage, we will work through our agenda. It will take us to morning tea, at least another hour. Then I would say more like 11:30. Kapai? Thank you, everyone, but feel free to stay if you want to. I know you probably don't want to. Councillors? Any leave of absence? No. Councillors? Focus. Any acknowledgements and tributes? None that was raised with me. No extraordinary business. No notices of motion. No adjourned business. So I'm going to take you, and it gives me great pride to take you to page 22, our annual report. And then I believe there's a presentation. We'll just wait that everything. Wow, we've opened it back. It's going to be a thing now. How to open it back. That's the truth.
Unless Julian turns on us.
No, if Julian turns on us, I'll kick him out that door. So, councillors, I am going to ask everyone to go to page 22, and these are these beautiful documents that was prepared for us. One is our annual report looking back on probably one of the busiest years ever, and one is the summary. So we have staff who will do a presentation, and then we'll open the floor for discussion. Bye-bye. Go.
Tato, I'm just waiting for our presentation to be loaded, please.
I might get a coffee then.
Yeah. Grab a coffee.
Grab a coffee and then we'll come back. Here it is.
Just your surname.
He knows where I am.
Okay, everyone. There we go. Sit back, relax, and watch.
Tēnā no tātou. So just what we're going to do is just go through some of the key aspects of our annual report. And some of you that were at the Audit and Risk Committee would have had an insight into the audit report, which was looking positive, and we just had a few always improve on, but from a compliance perspective, what we're presenting to you and in your annual report, you can have confidence that it's a fair reflection. Not going. No, it's turned on. can I just firstly acknowledge the councillors, elected members, your worship, just in terms of the last 12 months. And if you reflect back where you were 1 June, having basically just maybe 6 months in your role as elected members, and you had a cyclone, 2 of them to deal with, and also the massive learning that comes with the business of council. And just want to acknowledge your role as good governors for the region and supporting the organisation, myself and the team, to deliver on your strategic goals. So I do really want to commend the work and the support that the elected members have given the organisation over the last 12 months. So whilst this is a reflection of what some of the staff are going to talk about in terms of they've got like 3 minutes max to do their pieces, this is very much a reflection of the support that was being given to enable us to deliver the work. So just a big mihi to our members. I want to point out like what the massive year it was. So you know, our, as I said, weather events, massive infrastructure that we needed to restore. But at the same time, what you'll see in our annual report is we've managed to progress those key projects despite the mammoth of changes that came to us from from central government and from adverse weather events. We opened the pools, we progressed and completed our wastewater treatment upgrades, as well as critical work that was continued to be delivered on the Waipawa flood control scheme. And what you saw us was also transitioning from our recovery state and gradually trying to bring some normality back into the organisation while working through a massive negotiation process with central government around property buyouts, essentially standing up a whole unit and a whole process and procedures for those property buyouts. So it was no easy task for us. And on top of that, we had changes to, as you wish to say, like from 3 to 10 orders to now where we are landing today, which we have a workshop later in the year. And we also had the ministerial inquiry with the land use and advisors and all of the stuff to deal with. So it was it feels like every year it kind of gets more intense, and that certainly was. So just again, some of the highlights, as I've mentioned, the pools opening, not forgetting about the Emergency Coordination Centre that opened, and the work that the team have done in partnership around working with communities to provide them with containers for disaster response, progressing the long-awaited 1,000-year bridge, and work on the Taruhiru with Spartina spraying and so forth. In terms of our recovery focus, which is still very much in, and you would have seen these numbers before, but just a reminder around the 8 bridges destroyed, 54 damaged, 3,000 faults, a bill of $725 million and grant funding of $125 million to complete the work ahead, which we've been gradually progressing along the way. And I've mentioned before, in terms of the severely affected land, so through the negotiations we were able to land quite a significant package on behalf of the region, which the team, by the end of the year, we hope that we're able to have settled those property buyouts. And we're working in partnership on the house lifting with some grants, but through Toitu Tairāwhiti, they're delivering the lifting of most of the properties in Tikaraka. And we've also managed to get out the door commercial support, not to mention the Mayoral Relief and Disaster Relief Funds. And then we've got that wonderful task of woody debris there too. As I mentioned before, the Milu, so lots of work done in that space. We can pretty much tick off most of the actions that were identified in the ministerial inquiry into land use, and making some really good traction in that space, and in particular working collaboratively around how do we transition to sustainable land use. So that was a whole other area that we were fortunate to be able to secure external funding from MFE to help us deliver the mammoth work stream there. So that's just a glance, kind of a sets of context and some of the things we're achieved. Now Pauline's going to go into our finances. Thank you, Pauline.
So you've seen this a lot of times, but this is just basically snapshot on your statements, financial statements. And at the very bottom line, which is what we were talking about in the bottom line, which is a net surplus of 15.2 million, which represents better than we expected of 4 million. Most of that relates to some of the additional revenue that we actually had for the capital grants that were actually completed, especially with Crown, with the Category 3 buyouts. So just to give the capital expenditures also, not only is the operational costs they have, there's also capital investment. And at the very end, it's got the 91 million. Just to put it in perspective, certainly up to 2018, we were dealing, I think the highest one was 31 million prior to that. And so that time there's been a significant amount of investment, which is not mostly with external funds to do what we actually have to do. But in this year has been the highest level of capital costs that we have. There's a little bit more than what we had in the annual plan, but that was the result of additional external funds relating to the flood protection, relating to the Category 3 buyouts, so property buyouts, which was just around about 10 million. So when you're looking at how did we do, or what are we talking with financially prudent, there is the financial prudence benchmarks. They are statutory from the local government financial reporting and prudence regulations in 2014. They're standard for our all councils, and what they do is to say, give you, how did you perform? What you expected to do? How did you plan? And we have a total of 8 benchmarks, and if you refer to it, it will be under note 37 or the pages 184 within there, and all benchmarks are met. This one we also say in our financial strategy is how do we get to revenue, what are we doing, and what are we planning to do. With our cohorts and things like that, around about 60% comes from rates income, and within the previous, within the long-term plan, it is said that we also had said over that time it would be 60% of the rates. But during this time last year, rates income accounted for 32% of all the income that we received. What that reflects is while we're not better off before Gabrielle, it just means that the contribution of the rates was reduced to the overall impact. And the very last one. So how do we compare? Now you've got 2023 up there because obviously the other unitaries haven't adopted their annual report. But on the you can see 2024's figures that is up there, but then you've all got the comparison against the other unitaries doing the same functions, etc. But fundamentally, we have the lowest rates, we have the most assets, and the lowest debt. So we're doing pretty well.
Thank you, Pauline. Can I just ask a question? Yes. Any questions of Pauline? Councillor Para.
When you say we have the most assets, that means we have the most roading assets. We don't have that many other.
Yeah.
We don't have rental property.
Yeah, we don't have the 60 assets, but we've got roads.
No 60.
Right. I reckon we should note that somewhere.
Any other questions of Pauline? Councillor Older.
Thank
Look
you.
at me learning after 2 years.
On page 25, you have a bit of a summary.
Hey, Colin, we're going to come back and work through the document. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Specific questions on her presentation. So we'll come back and work through everything. Okay, hot seat next, Ms. Jo Noble. Or is it Mr. James Beatty? Oh, there's two hot seats. We do have 2 seats. Teams
Go show.
Stand up so we're quick.
Oh, there we go. I like the attitude.
So building consents, resource consents, so we kept on doing business as usual. So the building consents team were also busy with some of the recovery work and future severely affected land, but still processed over 4,000 building inspections, over 800 building consents, and nearly 200 land information memorandums. Our resource consents team was also busy, lots of work still in subdivision, housing intensification and development and forestry. So 78% of those resource consents were within timeframes. You'll remember the KPI is 70%. And a lot of working intensely with the forestry industry and landowners on reviewing that standard set of forestry conditions. Challenges through recovery, so supporting that future severely affected land program took up quite a lot of time for our building services teams. There have been many meetings with landowners, property owners, site assessments, trying to figure out ways to mitigate flooding risk in particular. There has been some increased oversight from MD in terms of our territorial authority functions, and we also had an audit last year, so we've seen an increased pressure on reporting and data requests from central government and oversight agencies. In terms of resource consent, there were some changed consenting requirements brought in through the severe weather legislative changes. That meant we had to turn around track consents really fast for recovery works on the state highways. Our own roading teams didn't benefit from the same changes, so they have to go through different processes. And so we've been working closely with TREC, when TREC was still the main player in town, on their resource consent processes, and keeping an eye on legislative changes. So we had the changes to the National Environmental Standards for Commercial Forestry, which the team had to work through, and the legislative system is changing around us as we're still having to process as consent under the current legislation, both for resource consents and consents. And also adopting the new land mapping technical information into the consenting process has been an opportunity, but also created some additional work. And from here, so our building team want to move, it's really a continual improvement sort of message for both teams. We want to move to fully digital inspections, so we don't have bits of paper lying around, to streamline that process, supporting property owners to lift their houses and mitigate flood risk, and our resource consents team has a real strong continual improvement program, and you will be receiving some more information on that later this month. And Māori engagement in consenting processes and decision making is an ongoing focus for the team.
Thank you, Joe.
Kia ora koutou. So just in terms of the compliance monitoring and enforcement space, you'll be aware that it actually predates the Bylaw, but encouraged by the media, we've undertaken a review of our compliance monitoring and enforcement space. That review has centred primarily on people, process and systems. By way of example, we've undertaken a wholesale review for our standard operating procedures. We've created new standard operating procedures. We've developed a risk matrix and take a risk-based approach to the work that we do in that space. We've looked at the way that we do cost recovery and moved more towards a user pays system, etc., etc. And we're starting to see the benefits of that review. We're in our last quarter now, but the work will continue into next year as we continue to embed the changes as a result of that review. Also, we have had quite a lot of mahi happening in our enforcement space around enforcement actions. You'll be well aware of some of the notable enforcement action proceedings that we've undertaken in terms of the forestry space, and that work continues. So we've had 2 enforcement orders granted and 1 currently underway. We've issued quite a number of compliance notices and inspection reports and abatement notices as a result. And we'll continue to do that work into the near future on the back of the fact that we've beefed up our forestry team, so we've got a dedicated team there and they continue to grow and develop. Should come as no surprise that our recovery efforts, and obviously on the back of severe weather events, that we've had an explosion of compliance related activity as well as the region continues to recover That's both in terms of work that we do and work that the community are doing as we try to repair our environment. The team are working hard in the high-risk space, more notably, and that'll continue for some time yet. Our work will continue as we embed the changes from CME review going forward. We're doing some updating to our radio system so the team can be in more connection with one another out there in the field, and some actions there for our environmental health. Some of that is business as usual, but we'll be doing considerable effort around alcohol-related harm reduction and food licensing and health monitoring compliance. And that's me.
Thank you. Thank you, James. Mr. Tim Barry, hot seat for you.
Can I ask questions of each different section, or are we going to do that later?
Kia ora koutou. Running the slides. Okay, I'm kicking off with lands, river and coastal. This year we've completed revetment works in Anzac Park and in the marina. That was partly funded by insurance monies. Also now completed Makaratu Stream leads into the Tarahiru drainage. That was a sore point and it's been well received by the community. And 45 kilometres of silt drainage completed, and a willow program in the TRI have all been completed on really lean budgets, but really happy to get that done. Challenges have been high water tables, really tough to do work this year. Despite that, we've managed to do all our budgeted work and get things done. And we've got Makaratu Stream out of the way now too. Our forward focus continues in the Waipoua River Valley. So we've completed the upgrade of the 21 kilometres off the western side of the stop banks. And that's part of the 70 million flood resilient package that we're working out over a period of time. We're trying to add pace to that. We've got coastal hazard interventions we're looking at, and early next year we're looking to get into flood resilience engagement with communities up there up the coast. Roads and footpaths. A big win this year has been reduced costs and temporary management, being able to temporary transport management, temporary safety management, able to template that into our engagement with contractors. We've got panels appointed now for slips and dropouts. There's 11 in there. We've got another panel for bridges. That's 7, I believe, in there. 1,000-year bridge. We hope to be given a date for an opening for that shortly. Any of you have seen that. And that's our highlights. For challenges through the recovery, really, it's been a workload. We're running at 250 odd %. What we normally do in BAU, so that's a particular challenge. Our forward focus relates to a change towards resilience mostly. So moving from, and we've started those interactions and started that thinking, we need to make our network more resilient to the frequent events that we're going to happen, and we have an ageing network that we need to recognise as well. Those are future focuses, as well as public transport is an important one for us. Wastewater and urban stormwater, our focus has been wastewater treatment, plant treatment ability, which has been improving after our recent capital works. Removing a number of nearly 100 more downpipes from our wastewater network, providing us additional capacity and reducing, deferring additional investment, and looking at keeping ahead of upgrades. So big challenges this year have been a number of overflows from severe events. Also an increased amount of odd bits of work, like nearly 100 tomos that appeared that needed solving that previously weren't. And our need to actually prepare for more future events in the future. So those are our challenges going forward. I've always gone too
far. Yeah.
Okay, wastewater, urban. So that's what just on that one. Yep, so I'm on the forward focus now.
Skip to the end.
Getting through water supply, it's all going, it's hard. Infrastructure. Yeah. Yeah, so focus on going forward. We're running at a high velocity. And I'm at 4 minutes. Over.
Thank you.
Good. Councillor Parata, you had a question of this presentation. Are you happy to ask it when we go through the document?
Oh, I just, yeah, if that's okay. I have a question about the traffic optimization of traffic management and setting up unattended sites. Has that resulted, or not resulted, have we noticed a rise in any car accidents or incidents of any kind from doing that?
No, not far enough down the track there. What we have done before implementing this is run a bunch of trials. Trials were successful, and by that meaning there were no incidents. So presently there's no data to support that it's riskier. We've worked on a process that's not riskier, it's just a bit more efficient. The savings too are not spectacular, they're quite modest, but the savings nonetheless, yeah.
Was it possible to, at some point, get an update about how?
Yes, absolutely. Now we're required to report to government, so that will also be available to.
Thank you, Karen.
Yeah.
Mr. Kerry Hudson, Livable Communities. Welcome, Kerry.
Thank you. So, thank you for the opportunity, and we go through to, yes, that slide there, so land use control, and Joe mentioned about where we were at with some of the 3B, and we're heading with transition really impressive going forward through our region. We still have some challenges with the weather, we're getting on top of them, and then also we are seeing a lot of other landowners and go through the whole process. So, and the forward focus there, a whole range of things of biosecurity, land management, a lot of change with regard to legislation and a range of issues like that, but we are taking a very positive attitude going forward in all of those activities. So, cultural activities, a changing world with the library, with particularly COVID, but more recently the weather events, but some really positive stuff coming through from there. A lot of change and really adapting towards that really nicely. Also with regard to theatres, a lot of change with that coming back after closures with COVID, but all really positive through there. Looking forward, there's some really key initiatives going forward nicely, and I can't get over the time I've been here is just how positive everyone is towards to keep those community connections and that moving. So a lot happening in this area with livable communities, Hawaii Turanga, Beale Street toilets, and then the challenges, but everyone's taking those challenges really nicely, and we have a lot going on, as well as, the continuously having to deal with the woody debris. So they're a resilient crew, and that's carrying on really nicely. Solid waste, we've just recently had a real advance at Tukumara Bay with a meeting there on the weekend, and then a lot of the remediation towards the legacy sites. Illegal dumping and continues to be a problem. plenty of recycling opportunities. And looking forward, we've got a lot happening in the waste management world, a lot of change. Also looking at the transfer station and going forward, some really positive stuff happening there. Forward focus on that, a lot happening in our recreation amenity areas and the aquatic services with the all going forward quite nicely.
Screen's not updating. He's updating his own screen. Next.
So,
Many thanks, Gary. Welcome, Anita.
I've got time management of 3 because they might go over time.
I'm just very impressed with the little clock running. You go 1 minute over, you get the stink eye. I should learn from that.
Very efficient.
Anita, welcome.
Thank you.
It's the first up, the
Oh,
emergency management.
right, I'm supposed to put my Ben persona on. Shakeout campaign, we won. And we've got one coming up.
Yep, next
soon.
Thursday.
Massive
I'll be
poll
shaking out with the Minister for
register.
Civil Defence.
Yes. Taitua Local Government Award for the Members' Choice. So that's a collab between Timo and our IT business support team that created that. And then lots of activities focused going forward.
Kia ora, that's me. So our highlights are around the 3-year plan and the quality consultation document. And just for your information, it's up for a Kaitura award, which will be announced early in this month. Township upgrades still continue. And also the launch of the Tiriti Campus and the work that we're doing to embed that through the organisation. Next.
Just so it's a finalist in the awards, so it's not just been put forward for
shortlisted. In terms of the challenges through recovery, one of them has been the pivot from the 10-year plan to the production of the 3-year plan. We'd already done some planning in terms of the 10-year plan when the cyclone hit, so that was a real adjustment for us. Impact of Gisborne on our township upgrade programs, and also cognizant of the psychosocial impacts in terms of being able to engage with the community through this process. Also our ability to respond to RFSs. So pre-cyclone we were at 50 overdue RFSs, post-cyclone we were up to 450, so we're working collaboratively to bring those down. In terms of the focus, city centre revitalisation is a key priority for us, and also improving the business relationship with the Chamber of Commerce in terms of the development of a partnership agreement. As I mentioned before, also a very, very focused collaborative approach to dealing with the RFSs. From a governance and democracy perspective, I'll start with the best first. We searched high and low for a replacement for Heather, and we have a new manager, which is Julian. I'm also really proud of the engagement of councillors in the 3-year plan process. I think that was outstanding. And it's just reiterating what Nadine...
And it's ongoing this weekend at the show.
Yes, yes. And also in terms of the forward focus, preparations for the 2025 elections, as well as providing better information and support for councillors to engage with the community. Kia ora, we're on to science. So we now have the groundwater model finalised, and we've put in place a terms of use agreement so other entities can use the model as well for their purposes. Science team have been busy supporting the Tairāwhiti Resource Management Plan review and analysing the data we already have and providing decision support tools for use internally and externally. And a little bit of a sort of positive news there, that our ongoing work with both Rongawhakata and Hawiti on inanga spawning habitats and restoration. I'll come up to the front and get the clicker. In terms of future focus, we'll be continuing to support the Tairāwhiti Plan Review, that's the big focus for the team. Also upgrading our flood intelligence network, so we were fortunate enough to get some funding from central government to both improve our flood forecasting model, but also to put in place more monitoring tools and redundancy, so another webcam and more redundancy for the existing monitoring we do of our rivers to help the community during flooding. And just a big focus on better management of our data, making it more accessible, more usable, and just sharing the rich information that we have. And then in terms of our policy and planning team, so strategic planning, we now have, or last year we managed to get active freshwater advisory groups for Waipawa, a regional group, Waimata, Pākarai, and the Uawa catchments. We did it, you remember you adopted the Future Development Strategy, and also a regional land transport plan and public transport plans, despite the central government direction changing sort of mid-process and the additional challenge of recovery. And the future focus is going to be on updating that Tairāwhiti Resource Management Plan. We have the TRMP committee now in place, so that's helping through climate change response, and also continued work on the future of severely affected land, completing the buyout process and helping our Cap 2P property owners put in place mitigations for their properties so they have some more security into the future. Oops, and I just ended the slideshow.
There is stop tour of your annual report. That was the end.
That's all.
We're going to go through the big document soon if people have questions. I just want to take the opportunity for us all here, and thank you, Nadine, for acknowledging councillors as well. It's been a massive year. When I spoke to Minister Simeon Brown last week, he did acknowledge that we've been doing the work of two councils. We have been working in areas at double capacity at what we usually do. So I do want to acknowledge Dean and her directors. Please convey our thanks to your teams. We know, all of us know there's stuff that we can do different and better, like in any organisation. And thank you for, when you did this presentation, to talk to us not only about clap, 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 but what is our future focus? What can we do different or better, or engage in a different way, or what need more focus from us? I really appreciate the fact that we acknowledge the fantastic work we have done, but also acknowledge we know we've got tough stuff ahead of us and lots of work to do. And I want to reassure you that as a councillor team, we are right there beside you, willing to do the mahi, willing to engage with our community, willing to bring that community voice back to the table, to make sure whatever we discuss here is what our community desires, or if they raise stuff with us, that we can bring that back confidently and make sure it is also incorporated how we move forward. Because at the end of the day, we are here as the voices of our community to see what we want to do, where we get the money from, and how our successes look at the end of the process. And what I've seen when I've read this big document, but also the smaller one, because I don't think a lot of people really want to go into a massive document with all the detail, except the governors. But the small consultation document is a fantastic tool for our community to see. After this has been passed today, I get quite a few questions have had of people asking what we do, how we do it, how many staff we employ. Now I can safely say to them, well, let me send you here to see what is council doing, where do we get our money from, and how do we succeed, and what areas do we still want to focus on going forward. So on behalf of us, thank you very much. Please make sure you convey that to the team, because even though we're looking back now on something that stopped in June, I know the teams have been churning since the 1st of July again in the new annual plan. So thank you from us. Councillors, I'm going to be in the big document, and I think what I'm going to do is open it up in sections. And please, when you do ask a question, just take us to the page. If you have small typos and stuff that you might have picked up, please flick staff an email. We are here as governors to take a look at the big picture. So our direction and so first it's the year that has been, which takes us from page 14 to page 34. Are there any questions in that section that people might want to ask? Colin, what page were yours? I thought it was 25. I think it was 25, but I'll carry on, and once you're ready, just put your hand up.
25, yes.
Okay, so do you want to...
yes, so financial performance overview. I realise a lot of the money we're spending at the moment is very extra. But what's concerning here is that our spend is 32%. Sorry, our rates represent 32% of our total revenue. We have increased staffing by about 10% this last year, and our salaries have gone up, I think, nearly 30% over the last 4 years. And it's a real worry that when we come down from this recovery, that we're going to have a residual cost that we can't cope with. And that to me is really concerning, and I'm just wondering whether we have things in place to make sure that's not going to happen.
I'll let them answer that. Thank you.
I can respond to that. So that, I mean, I guess how you look at it could be a good thing in terms of the rates representing only 32% of the overall income, which is saying that most of our income that we're receiving to operators from grants and other subsidies. In terms of the additional staffing numbers, that has gone up relative to the income that we are receiving. And so many of the big projects, we have in place fixed term arrangements so that when those projects are finished, the salaries will drop off. That's the way of managing that.
So increased workload, more staff, but when for 2 years, and then at the end of those 2 years, that's finished.
Supplementary question, West, I guess. And one is to note that the government is making slashing cuts on all fronts, so that portion of our funding is going to go down over the next few years. Would it be possible to get a graph showing our salary cost as a percentage of our rates over the last 10 years? I just think that would be quite an interesting graph measure.
We have, I think, Your Worship, we have given you that sort of when we come to the what is it and what is the comparatives, but we can update.
Okay, Councillor Parata, thank you. Just give us your page.
Oh no, I just wanted to say and respond. I think the report, I think it looks really good. I think it tells a lot of stories, and I think that that's really important when our communities want to engage. I think it is important for the transparency around funds and finance where money is going, but most importantly is what is the impact of the work that we do, and how are our communities benefiting from it. And I think that is shown really well in this mahi. But also just want to note that what the report does is it shows us the breadth of the mahi that council does and the expertise required. That expertise is expensive, and I will just note that at least in terms of the public service and public service cuts, that there are people who don't have mahi and there are people who have left the region. If we don't want them to leave the region, we have to pay them good money to stay. So I just wanted that noted for anyone who is watching the live that needs that explained, and the cost of inflation. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Thompson and then Councillor Robinson. Thank you.
Thanks for the annual plan. We've definitely done heaps of work and been in action. The work's doubled, but our staffing hasn't doubled, so it's put a lot of pressure on it. There's probably positives from it too. It's, a lot of other regions have been really short on work, and it has sort of given us a buffer through there, creating work for people. So there are pros there as well. Just the thing I've mentioned a few times is the question I've got is our borrowing. So we're
Give us the page, Councillor Thompson.
So page 27. So our net 158 million. So we're near our 130% debt to revenue cap, 128.5% at the moment. So we've further in the paper that we can actually borrow up to 175%, but our cap's 130%. I'm just wondering how we're projecting for next year and where we sit with that 130%. Is it just going to come to council to raise that? Because I have concerns. It's easy to borrow money, but it's hard to pay money back. Do what's easy, life will be hard. Do what's hard, life will be easy. So I've just got real concerns with our borrowings.
For your worship. So you, 130% is a limit that you set yourself based on the 2021 credit card $15,000. You don't have to go up to that limit. You might say, I'm only going to spend so much. So you put that limit at 130% based on the program of works that you need to do. As part of the 3-year plan, the 27 3-year plan, you adopted the financial strategy, and the financial strategy said we've got to do a lot more. We know we've got to respond to the recovery work, especially within the roading, and we estimated that over that period of time that we would need to say that the financial strategy is 175% to have that, but we have a target of 160%. And so debt goes up to 232 million by year 2027. We said in 28, which is 1 year after that, we're forecasting it still goes up a little bit beyond that, but you're within those thresholds and you have within that margin a little bit for emergency response for the 175. The other parts, just to understand the ability to borrow, there's two parts to that. We have more in terms of we could be credit rated where we can go up to 280%. But the real issue, what you're talking about, is how can we have the ability to pay it back? And so that is why we've got a reasonably conservative approach that we, in terms of those measures of affordability, it is saying how much can you service that as a percentage of your rates, and it has a percentage of the revenue. And of rates, it is 15%. You have to be under that threshold. And of total revenue, it's 10%. We're at about, in both those cases, I think rates, which is under 10%, we're about 5 or 6%. We're totally under those kind of thresholds, and the others is again well under half. We're just under half of the ability there. So we take affordability seriously and how you're going to do it, and also acknowledging there is a body of work that you actually have to do. So that's the forward focus, but this is where we are with regards to debt.
So from 130% in the annual report, we've done our 3-year recovery plan. The 175% provides us with room, and we will borrow as we need to do that, and then we have increased rates as well to cover as we project it out.
I just want to put that in perspectives. When I go to the National Council for Local Government New Zealand, one of our bigger councils, their debt sits at 285, and they're asking the government to move them to 350%. So what I'm trying to say is, even Minister Brown commented on it, even though we've been through so much, our percentage of debt to assets to income is actually well controlled. Not that I absolutely agree with you. We want to borrow as little as we can, but putting it into perspective, we are at the lower end of local government. There are some councils, especially now as we start talking about water entities, who cannot really do anything because they have no moving room in their percentages. Another question?
Yeah, can I, yes. Within those pages. Page 30, our illegal dumping's doubled to 775 tonnes in the last year. Most of it right in front of our facility there, so right in front of our noses. I'm just wondering what we're actually doing as a deterrent. Have there been, how many prosecutions and infringements have we had? Because I was there the other day and people are just throwing, it's just common knowledge, people can just throw their rubbish bags there without stickers and they just get taken, so yeah, it's...
Where's that?
Right outside the subdivision there.
Oh, that big bin there.
You're meant to have
I thought
stickers.
you put your sticker on.
So you're meant to, but people are just,
Nothing.
everyone says, oh, you don't need stickers, you just throw it in there, and it's happening right in front of their face. I'm just wondering, and now it's sort of getting around that it's, oh, you can just throw your rubbish
We
there.
lodged a request for service in that regard.
So I'm just wondering how many prosecutions and what we're doing as a deterrent, because it's only going to increase if there's no deterrent prosecutions, infringements.
So Pauline's looking up the numbers, and I'd probably have to defer to Phil, but he's not here. But the fines that we have available are set by legislation, so I think it's $400, and you'd have to go through a lot more investigation work to identify. So where you can, if people have got like things that can identify them in their rubbish, then that's easier enough, but often it's very difficult to catch someone. In terms of prosecution, my understanding is that it will take more, cost more than to prosecute, significantly more, given, and when you kind of compare that, because it's the case with every kind of RMA prosecution anyway, but this is quite different in the sense that the adverse impacts aren't as severe or significant in terms of what you do by way of prosecution and losing money through, say, a forestry one, for example. So we have not done any prosecutions when it's come to illegal dumping, as far as I'm aware, and James will correct me, but
and Minister Brown,
to my mind in my time here at council,
also brought it up that fines are not, because the fines are not set by us, so you mentioned that as well, that fines in the local government setting are not deterring people because it costs councils more to prosecute someone, so they're also looking into that.
Or even something just as simple, telling someone, hey, you need a sticker on your rubbish bag, because that's where it's all...
Well, we all know we need to put a sticker on our rubbish bag, though. We don't have to tell anyone that.
Well, I think it's people are realising they don't actually need one, they can just throw it in.
And they can put a camera up there.
yeah, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, the camera, you still have to chase down and spend all the resources in that space. That's not to say that we're not sitting on our hands on this. So educational campaigns is part of it. Local authorities can only go so far. There needs to be individual accountability and responsibility within our community. So yes, we can play our part, but I think we need to really be hammering home our kaitiakitanga around looking after our place as well, because it is a community to do so. I was just seeing it's 30,000 as the maximum penalty that can be placed for, and that would be serious illegal dumping offences. Anita, that's something she would
Chair, we are developing a campaign.
Pardon?
We are developing a campaign around illegal dumping too, so that will be rolled out in the near future.
And also, if you see it, you need to call it in. We also need to be community eyes. I'm not talking about councillors as such. I'm talking about our community self-policing. If you see someone dumping stuff, like coming out to smaller country roads, people come there with trailer loads of trash and just chuck it. I've reported some person once before because I could, they obviously were just then dump stuff out there. But it is a big process for council to then get onto it. So also for our community need to make sure we take responsibility. I've got Councillor Robinson before you speak, and then we've got Councillor Tibble. Oh, Josh just left. I want to hand over to him. Just quickly before I go, want to say best of luck for the rest of today, and for the Disaster Relief Fund, which Rhonda and myself sit on. She will speak on our behalf there. But best of luck. I'm going to see Shane Jones now, be part of his meeting for the rest of the day, so I probably won't see you. You can come when it's... I'll put you apologies then because there's still too much on. But so Josh will take over, but in the meantime, Rhonda, Tony, then Rhonda, and then Josh will make sure people that haven't spoken yet. So just make sure, so Colin, I've noted you want to speak again, so we'll just canvass as it go, and then we'll come back to that. So Tony, the floor is yours, and then Rhonda.
Madam Chair. So just following up on Councillor Thompson's point, yeah, there are lots of people dumping their bags here after hours without stickers on. I've seen it myself. But I guess one of the good things is they're not then dumping it down at the Mag Mile. And I think that's a reflection. But the flip side is, I know there's a roaring trade in rubbish stickers on Facebook. So you've got possibly tenants who sell the stickers and then just go and dump the stuff after hours. I'd rather have them dump it straight outside the gates of the refuse transfer station than dump it on Onipoto or anywhere else. So it's but we need to do something. I don't recall seeing massive signs saying you require a sticker. I know it's obviously you do, but maybe it just looks so obvious you can put rubbish there that people just put rubbish there. Okay, so my two questions relate to page 29, paragraph, top of the page, water supply not met. So we didn't meet our water loss target of below 15%, but then it says this was mainly due to multiple faulty water meters. This is the first time I've actually recalled hearing about this. Can we have a little bit of explanation about what that actually means? Is that multiple water meter failures at commercial sites or residential or in the system, and so we just don't know how much water we've lost?
That would be to commercial sites. So from Gabrielle, that then impacted on the water meters. So we're only water metering our commercial, individual properties that are metered.
Right. So when we say we didn't meet our 15, we don't actually know whether we met our 15 or not because the meters weren't actually recording accurately.
We didn't.
Next question is page 30, top of page 30, aquatic facilities management. It says there that we are consistently meeting all performance targets in relation to our aquatic facilities. But are we though? Because are we not significantly short on our revenue targets for the Kiwa pools? Concerned that statement kind of implies that we are meeting all our KPIs, but...
So it would be the non-financial performance, because this is in the section that starts up with the non-financial performance, so it's referring to the non-financial performance measures under their KPIs.
Well, it does say aquatic facilities management, which to me is the business side of things, as opposed to we didn't have anyone drown. I think that statement's too generic. Anyway, I think it's a little bit misleading because it's too generic. But those are my 2 points in this section.
Thank you, Councillor. We will capture that in future reports to reflect that. The flip side is that we did used to have an aquatic facility that never met its customer satisfaction measures, and it is now.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Councillor Tibb.
Yes, kia ora tātou. Just 2 issues. Number 1, coming back to the illegal dumping and waste management. Could it be an assumption on our part that it's an affordability issue?
Yeah.
And if that is the case, then what is our mitigation strategy when it is actually an affordability issue? So I just wanted to leave that one there. My second point was I wanted to address, Tim Barry, your report in regard to 250% more work your team's having to cover off. For me, the question that I'm asking is that if it's 250% in your space, and what I've heard in relation to the annual report, BAU plus 250% more means that all staff are actually working triply hard, and in my view, possibly harder than what we normalised in the time of Gabrielle. So the question that I actually have is, do we know that our staff are well?
Yes, and that's a good question, Councillor Tibble. So we run wellbeing surveys to make sure. So yep, the organisation has been under considerable stress, which led us to put in place a number of interventions around supporting our staff in terms of wellbeing and also retention, because then you see that starting to see a high turnover in that area. And so I think our last wellbeing survey was showing that people do feel cared for, they enjoy coming to work. We're running another one now, so we're just putting out our Ask Your Team survey, which will give us some more insights into that and what more that we can do. So yeah, a number of initiatives that we've put in place over the last 12 months, and we believe they've been successful, and we will see what comes through and tells us in this next
round of surveying.
Thank you. Supplementary, just one more, please. I referred to page 30 and increase in library users. The point I wanted to raise here is you see a totemisation of users inside the library, but a dramatic increase in digital resource use. My question is there an overview about the space between the hologram of digital resource use, which then takes away less use for people to attend, human resource to have workstream outputs that way? Do we know across the whole business how much effect digital resource then removes the need for actual human face-to-face across the business?
Not just in the library.
No, across the whole business.
We don't, I mean, there will be some areas where you can achieve efficiencies and therefore not require a staff resource to deliver things. I think what we're seeing also in the AI space, for example, across the sector is that there are actually going to be different types of jobs that will be done and delivered. You'll still need, and particularly though in a place like Tairāwhiti, where our community is still wanting that face-to-face engagement. I don't see that kind of being replaced by any robotics in the near future. So, but yeah, I think we just haven't done the exercise on that though. We know, say for example, in the consenting space that Joe spoke about with building consents, if we can get them automated more, that'll provide you probably be more productive in your outputs on the role, not necessarily require the need to remove a human from that process. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, just in terms of that, also moving to online services has an impact in terms of the face-to-face interaction that you can accord to people. So it does improve the quality of the service that you deliver by moving people to online with that interaction, that more meaningful interaction. So in the customer service space, for example, we did move into an online environment that reduced the need for the amount of staff that we were using from what we had to what we've got now. So it does have an overall impact.
Just the last thing in relation to that, if we consider COVID and our future priority in terms of the CBD, it would be a fair assumption to lead off in terms of the digital response that a lot of business went to the digital marketplace, yes? And so these are actually new emerging trends and they will have deep impact on us going forward. So my question is, how do we make sure that we understand how that impacts this business? Kia ora.
So you'd have a response?
Yeah, sorry, for the chair. Just wanted to also point out that while the library and a lot of the others have very their targets are high. So in putting their on-site targets is 150,000. They actually achieved 113, which is the high, 113,000 people coming through there, which is the highest in the last 2 years, almost like by double. Well, not double, certainly COVID, notwithstanding COVID, it has been increased by 20 or 30%. So they do have a high target, and while they didn't achieve it, they always are trying to do more. So they're doing far, perhaps, they're bucking the trend with other areas, is they're actually getting a lot of people coming in there as well. And if you like.
Councillor Telford, then Councillor Rea.
Yeah, probably going back to Councillor Thompson's question on the illegal dumping. I'm just wondering whether it's time for us to basically take something to LG and Z around the ability to around these settings, these fines, because a lot of these fines, when it comes up over all different areas, seem to be way out of kilter for what the costs of actually taking these to prosecution. So we tend to avoid doing that because we're going to lose money. I think it's well past the time, and if we look at the legal dumping, that's one instance. The ability for landowners to recover the cost associated with worrying stock is another one that comes up regularly. I think probably the best way that we could do is to take something to LGNZ and try and get real support around the country to have this really looked at, because it comes up all the time, and if there's not disincentives, the illegal dumping of rubbish, I'm wondering whether there's a little bit of thing. When you pay your rates, you get stickers for rubbish. Every landlord that owns a property and is paying rates should be getting stickers. Are these stickers being passed on to the actual tenants would be one thing that, because at the end of the day, there shouldn't be any reason to be chucking black bags without rubbish stickers on them.
Yeah, 100%. Councillor Telford, just to, I guess, give that broader context of council, we have actually made a submission to LGNZ. It was a fly tipping submission, I think it was called. It received national endorsement, was well received at our LGNZ of the previous term. I think it was Councillor Worsnop that had led that. But, you know, well in line in what we're thinking regionally, and definitely something that we need to be following up on as well, with our mayor being part of that national council. Councillor Reid.
No, Mr. Chair. Mine's around the same issue, illegal dumping and waste management, but it's specifically around illegal dumping and waste management around titirangi. So summertime is definitely the time where the dumping of rubbish on titirangi or Kaiti Hill increases, when people are off on holidays and things like that. And so we've heard that the cost to enforce illegal dumping costs too much to the council, but then we also have to pay the extra cost to remove. Is as a possible way forward, if there's a submission from the community, because I have heard it mentioned by both walkers and members of the marae community about the suggestion of a traffic arm to restrict traffic access to Kaiti Hill in the nighttime hours, so that, because that's when the majority of the dumping happens. So it wouldn't restrict access from walkers and bikers and dog walkers, but it would restrict access for vehicles. Would that be a more cost-effective management of waste being dumped on titirangi maunga? I just want to throw that out and see where that lies. Kia ora. And Kaiti Beach.
From staff on that particular matter.
It does feel like too, we're in this really great conversation in regards to waste, their dumping and things like that, but it'll probably be a really good idea for us to circle back and have this conversation in fullness with Mr. Nixon here, in our operations committee. Sorry, it was Councillor Tupara.
Just further on the waste management, I congratulate the staff on producing such a massive amount of work and effort that's gone into this document. But I do want to touch further on the waste management, whether or not there's considerations going forward around minimising waste and reducing that, and if there are education or advocacy programs intended to tackle illegal dumping, that whether or not these can be as consideration for minimisation.
Councillor Tupara.
We have another point.
Yes, yeah.
Are we going from section through section at a time?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I will hold. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, which sections are we covering at this point?
Was there anything else in regards to this first section? I think from 20 to 22. It goes to like 70 something. There's that first intro part, and then we start kind of getting into our direction and responses and all those kind of things. So it's up until 66. Councillor Alden.
Okay. Just on the waste management, and remembering a comment made by a Ngātapu resident who was concerned that in summer they're burning their rubbish out there and they would love access to stickers. The extra cost that we spend on illegally dumped rubbish, I believe, probably way outweighs our stickering system. Wouldn't we be better off to have free dumping system where people can get rid of their rubbish at no cost, and will that not save us money? The other question here is that a lot of our rubbish is being dumped at the dump at a time when the dump is closed. Should we be analysing our open time at the dump? And are we open at times that suits the public?
So again, I just want to circle back to, like, we're having a conversation now about waste management, where what's in front of us is the annual report, which is what has happened since between 2023 and 2024. Not saying that this is an important conversation. Let's circle and involve those specific staff and an operations committee.
Yes, through the chair, I've heard loud and clear one further conversation around illegal dumping and waste management, so I'll get Mr. Nicholson onto that at a future committee.
All right. Any other questions in regards to our annual report? So, Councillor Older, then Councillor Green.
Yes, the library area, and bearing in mind that the library is the centre of staff abuse, and it just...
Which page are you on, sorry?
So it's really a combination of page 30 and page 87, where we measure the usefulness of the library. And I was just wondering, around page 87, should we not have a do the public feel at risk question there, which we have in the previous measure, but not in the library measure? So, okay, what am I asking here? A lot of the problems at the library seem to be stemming from homeless people. Who is responsible for our homeless, and are they coordinating sufficiently to solve the problems that the homeless are raising?
I believe this was brought up previously before in regards to incidences at the library. I think at our last meeting here, and it was a mix of people. It wasn't just those that those of our homeless community. But do you want to just I can't remember who gave us that answer.
I can't quite. We did have a discussion about it at audit and risk. But look, I'm happy to, like, if there are any other kind of forward-focused or current issues that need to be addressed, I'm happy to take those offline with councillors to do that. I'm just not equipped to be able to respond to some of the specifics right now. Really happy to respond to the annual report of what's in here. If there are any fundamental issues or questions that you have about how we've reported on here, that's gone. But I'll pick up on the other issues outside this report.
Yeah, that's 100% fair, because again, this annual report is about year worth of performance. Last year's worth of performance. So any kind of those questions reflecting backwards. Councillor Gregory, and then after Councillor Foster.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like just to acknowledge the massive workload involved in this annual report and the great achievements within it. I have a concern regarding not any particular page in here, but just relating to, and I've raised it before, but relating to how we measure the satisfaction of our ratepayers with the work that we've done, and the customer satisfaction surveys, which are done via landlines, and so just to gauge that customer satisfaction, and that feeds into a lot of this annual report, and it's a measure of 400 people out of our population of about 52,000. So I did a bit of research. Tasman Council, which is 58,000 people, does a similar. I mean, all councils have to do these independent resident surveys. They get responses from 5,396 people using 3,000 landlines and 2,000 cell phones, and also do online surveys. and then a full report is produced, so you can find them all over, all through all councils, and you can see the demographics and everything works out just KT Pi. And I just think it's time that we updated how we do this so that we are getting a true idea of our customer satisfaction from our ratepayers.
Thank you, Councillor Weber, and I absolutely agree with you, and seeking timeframes from our team about when we will do that update this year.
From this year, new, just through here, just to have the same system from the last long time, we realised that there were some shortcomings, and so we tried to supplement wherever we could that information, such as where we consulted with the community for the wider, we supplemented that overall information, so that methodology and the process was in the last long plan and moving to a different methodology with that same concerns that you have for this 3 years. Thanks.
Councillor Foster.
Yeah, thank you. Mine was along the same lines actually, because on page 87 you've got, we're amending our current model to improve how we collect survey information. There's a whole good data on that, but what I'd like to just, I'd like to congratulate the staff too. It's been a massive year and just the biggest year ever, and the most amount of work that I've ever seen being done. So absolutely fantastic. But we can't please everybody, and there is still some disgruntled people out there, and in particular some of the our developers and our subdivisions and our property developers when it comes to the consenting area. So, and we've had meetings here with them, which didn't go down very well at all, even though I wasn't here, but I've met a whole lot of people that were, and they weren't impressed whatsoever. So I'm just wanting, to see how we're going to help mitigate this and improve our services for the future, because our economic future is determined on a good consenting regime, and we have had a lot of criticism, huge amounts of criticism about it. So I'd like to see some that being addressed if that's possible, please.
Thank you.
And through the chair, so you would have noted in Anita's presentation around the work that we're doing with the Chamber of Commerce, so recognising that there are some areas to improve. There's also acknowledgement that some developers need to understand also some of the changes in the processes as well. So they've offered to be some kind of a broker to help in that space. So that's certainly a focus that we is top of mind for us.
Okay. So that's good with regular meetings with different people.
I'll go Councillor Thompson, Councillor Rea, then Councillor Thompson. And if the again, just to kind of like help bring us some structure to this discussion, if your point's already been said, please you don't need to re-mention that point again. I'm just going to try to tighten us up, because we haven't even moved past the first paper yet, and we're almost at 11, and we've still got lots and lots of business to get through. So, Councillor Thompson, Councillor Rea.
My point's sort of around the targets too. For example,
so that's already been said.
Oh, it's a little bit different. I just want those targets to change. So for our consents, it's a statutory requirement, 20 days. Our target should be the statutory requirement, not 70%. It's a statutory requirement. Our target should never be less than that, because it's like, yep, we've met our 70% is our target, we've met our target, tickety-boo. It's not. Unless you reach your statutory requirement, for me, you haven't obtained your requirement. So I'd like that 20 days to be our requirement, not 70% of the 20 days. And also on page 124, discharges into a river with our sewage. So in a less than 1 in 10 rain event, we release sewage into the river 4 times. So we've met our target. Our target should be no sewage in the rivers. So I'd also like that target changed to 0.
I think the Chief Executive has given us the undertaking that we're going to be re-looking at what the targets are now. And again, I'd like to remind us, we're discussing the annual report and the performance over the last year. With all these future different tweaks are definitely things we can discuss. It's just that they're not going to be formed up to anything useful by us sharing them now. So 100%, I definitely agree with the points that have been made. It's just that this conversation is a conversation that we need to have with the right people in the right room at the right committee.
Yeah, just to make a mention of the targets or the service levels. So, you know, I hear what you're saying, and there's a degree of practicality in that around absolutely no wastewater overflows into the river. We know that if you've got major events, our infrastructure isn't there to cope. When you change your measures, however, there's tying you back to process. I know it'd be frustrating, but there is a process that we have to go to when you're doing levels of service changes, which usually would do that through an annual plan or a 3-year recovery plan process. So the opportunity for changing those now, we'll have to wait until we come into the annual plan process. Is that right? Or are we looking at an LTP plan?
Yeah, almost.
Yeah.
Not a simple process.
No. I had Councillor Ria and Councillor Telfer.
I do want to acknowledge the huge amount of work that it's taken to put this document in front of us, this report, these summaries. It was a really great read. I didn't come across any major things that I thought shouldn't be in there. And I want to acknowledge that my last question was kind of besides the point from, you know, we're just trying to keep on specifics of the annual report, and it was an addition. And so I'm recognising that, and I'm going through my questions and going, actually, that is an addition. Let's just focus on the annual report. So probably the only main comment I wanted to make is that I think that the annual report is awesome. I think that we should consider the huge opportunity for transparency and accountability. I would like to see an addition part to the annual plan, which may be a summary of community matters, which directly address some of the major concerns which have been vocalised in our local community over the year. It could include local roading and potholes, external funding for community projects, acknowledgement of what could have been things that we weren't prepared for when the cyclone came, but amendments that we have made so that what we do in the future is better. It could be Grey Street. I don't need to say any more about that. It could be the sad event with the poi whānau and what happened to their beloved dog. It could be public recording and or live streaming of workshops. It could be consenting. So there are all these main issues that we all know, that we all come across, that happen out in the community. And I think it would be great to have a community snapshot of things that are specific to what the community wants. I think that the opportunity is for us to, 1, publicly acknowledge that the year hasn't been smooth sailing. 2, target public misconceptions around different issues. 3, have a place where the community can just go to see those issues which they have indicated are important to them without having to sift through 200 pages trying to find something. But most importantly, that we as an organisation have learnt from the issue and how that informs our future practice, engagement and processes. So that's what I want to put out there for us to consider. The annual report, and it's awesome to read all the things we've done right. It's also, we've all had this open conversation amongst ourselves as a council about how difficult some of the public issues that come up, and in terms of sometimes misconception, and it's a real opportunity for the council to take some real accountability of issues. It's not about saying something was right or wrong, but we know that things haven't always been perfect, and it would be nice to see how we've learned from it and how we plan to move forward. Kia ora tātou.
Next have Councillor Telfer, then Councillor Older, then Councillor Tupara.
Yeah, look, mine can probably be dealt with at operations, but I just want to highlight it. It's just around page 66 on the drain wires implementation program. Just how we had a budget of 4.4 million and we only spent 2.8 million. And when it's this dumping of waste, opening valves into the river has been going on for years and years, and it's one of the biggest things that upset our community. For us not to have spent this money is just a clear sign that we need to really up the amount of contractors actually engaged onto this thing, so we do start achieving, because that's a lot of our budget not to have spent on a pretty important thing. So just to note it, and I think it's something we need to look at further in operations.
Yeah, there's a plausible explanation for that, and that's because most of those contractors and staff were deployed into addressing the major fixes that were needed around from the impacts from Cyclone Gabrielle. So, but yeah, keeping a close eye on them going forward. Hopefully we've got no more cyclones coming.
Thank you, Councillor Telfer. Councillor Older, Councillor Pahu, Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Chair. Look, thank you for this report. It is huge, and it took a long time to read, and it took a lot of digesting, and I took a lot of notes. And I feel a little disappointed that we are rushing through this part of it. I would quite like to have had a lot more time to progress through it, because there are a lot of areas that I doubt we'll ever get back to, but we'll hopefully. Yeah, just things like, you know, all the stuff that's been said, but who defines our parameters? Drainage is 50% satisfaction and roading potholes is 80%. That's the question. And one thing I really want to raise that we need to think about is RFS reaction time. It seems to be that reaction time is the only important thing here. And with my own eyes, I've witnessed figures arriving on 2 days in the same place for knee-jerk reactions to an RFS, and we're wasting money by not efficiently using our resource in reaction to RFSs. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Older. Were there any other points that you wanted to...
No, not at this stage. Well, no. We're short of time. We need to be done.
Well, yeah, I do want to keep us focused to the annual report, but I also do want to reiterate, though, that the ideas and the things that we want to do in order to improve our community and what council does in the future, those are all valid ideas. We definitely want you to share those things, but they'll be at operations for in regards to, say, waste, or they'll be at when we're scripting up what exactly our targets and our benchmarks will. Several of us have concerns and would like feed in to be able to feed into our council community benchmarks. All of these are very valid points. I just want to make sure that we're bringing them up in the space where we can actually enact them as a council organisation. Councillor Older, then Councillor Tupara, Councillor Pahuruhuriwai, Councillor Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Page 52, just wanting to highlight the lovely image there of the Ardai Swing Bridge being open. It's one I personally was getting a huge battering over from my relations at Manatuki, and it's lovely to see Auntie Aroha crossing that bridge. And given her recent loss to that community, job well done to have that, and the impacts on that community are massive. For being able to connect both sides of that little township. Page 51 at the bottom there on the notorious 1,000-year bridge. I've also had a significant amount of negative feedback on that project, and I was hopeful that there could be a consideration to developing the corridor that goes with the bridge. So that there is a counterbalance to some of the other thoughts around it, and what its purpose is, and what 1,000 years represents actually.
Really good Councillor Pahuruhuri.
From the total core, Councillor Ria's whakaro around the giving the community snapshot. And also, Councillor Tupara was talking, I know when he's raised it before around artworks, when we're using artworks in our documentation, that we acknowledge the artists. I just remember that coming across at me when I was looking through the document, that we need to do that. My question was on page 101. It's probably, again, more a future thing. Around vibrant city and townships, our food and beverage establishments are safe, healthy and diverse. And under objectives, all food premises are inspected and have the appropriate plans to manage food safety. One of the things that's been raised with me by rural food businesses is their concern around the cost of being compliant, and that they are not only having to pay the extra costs it has to be a rural food establishment, but the compliance costs are prohibitive to them being able to continue their businesses, especially with all the other rising costs. So in terms of going forward, if we could just note that somewhere, that we could look at that in terms of rural food services. But I'm happy to move the report. And again, thank you, as everyone else has said, to a job well done in pulling that massive body of work together in a way that's, while it's huge for us, it's able to be understood and read. So, Kānui te mihi, I'm happy to move it.
Thank you, Councillor Pahu. Councillor Robertson.
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to second the paper. I've got 1 point remaining, and that is on page 64, under the wastewater treatment plant upgrade. The opening paragraph says in the second sentence that there are plans in place to construct a wetland for further contaminant removal. Now, I know that's been an aspirational plan, and I know we've talked about it, but I didn't understand we'd ever formalised a plan to do it. Can I just have some clarification around that? We don't have a date, we don't have a pathway to achieving that, do we? So we don't have a plan. Or do we?
But it is budgeted for in year 10 of our previous long-term planning to year.
So it's an aspirational, distant aspiration, but we don't have a pathway to it right now, do we?
No, we're still in an engagement phase on that subject.
All right. Just want to make sure that no one in the public was under a misinterpretation based upon that sentence. Okay, right, that's me.
Robertson. Do you have any other questions? Any other comments?
Is
that sorry?
Is this anywhere?
Yeah, just to have. Yeah, go, Councillor.
It's a very small one, but on page 216, it lists our pay bands and how much money has been paid out. Is it just a mistake that D. Thompson got $64,000 there? I just can't work that out. And most normal councillors get about 49,000, and there's no. I can understand the rural councillors getting mileage, but is that an error or
what page are you on?
What page are you on?
How much is that?
16.
16.
Child care reimbursement.
Yeah, it's probably childcare. But who knows? We can figure that out.
So ratepayers pay for childcare.
Yeah.
Yes, I knew that.
They have to be under a certain age though. And there's all these rules around it, but yeah.
Any other questions? Oh, Councillor.
Since we're jumping right through, page 111, it's at the bottom there. I think instead of Mākeritu, it's Mākaritu. And just a point on Ingang found up there. It's well worth mentioning because I understand that the water quality, the measured water quality of Mākaritu and particularly the wharekōpai that flows into that river has been rather poor over time. But having Inganga now in there and confirmed as eggs suggests that the work that's been going into efforts up that way should also be highlighted, which it isn't. Not that we're being whakahihi about things, but it's a natural eco measure of the quality of the work that's being done up there, particularly given that the river in question is above the Rere Falls, so it's not an easy effort for those inganga to find their way to that place. And I think it's worth noting that there has been considerable anxiety about the water quality up at the falls and the rock slide, but the interventions that Council's been doing is now have evidence that wildlife are returning to there. And I think that's important to look at in the report.
Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, just a minor point just on our levels of service. On page 86, it mentions footpath renewals. So we've done 0.481, 0.18% of our footpaths. So yeah, at that rate, it's going to take 1,500 years to renew our footpaths, and you know your footpath's not going to last 1,500 years. And it's the same with the drainage budgets, the percentage of drainage you can do and the drainage you've got. It's going to take years and years to. I just want to note that we don't have the budgets to be maintaining our assets efficiently, and I just want to make that point known. So people say, "Oh, come and clear my drains." It's actually we've only got money to do this percentage of drains. In an ideal world, we would have this much, but we don't. So I just want to make that point in terms of levels of service.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. If there's nothing else, then I'll have my say and then I'll put it because we've had a move around seconder. But this is actually the page that I wanted to speak to, which is page 86. So I do want to acknowledge the and it's just general. I don't need any answers in regards to our performance and things like that and our targets. But I do want to acknowledge the staff and on presenting an annual report that, yes, it had a lot of highlights, but was honest about the lowlights, you know, and more like, and that's highlighted on page 86. It's important for us as a council to, yes, celebrate the many things that we've done, the hard work that we've achieved. As Minister Brown has said, our council has been doing the work of 2 councils. It would be nice if we got that government support. That's 2 councils' work, but hey, that's an aside. We're talking about an annual report. But it's also important too to talk about the targets that we did not meet in order for us as councillors, and I hear this really well around the table, we want this organisation to be better. We want it to be transparent. We want to have targets that are reasonable and that meet our community expectations. You know? So I do want to acknowledge our council staff, because often we get, as councillors and as a whole, we get sometimes told that we're not being honest about the situation of things, and we have been honest in regards to this annual report. So thank you very much, Nadine. Thank you very much to your team. We have a mover in Councillor Pahu, a second in Councillor Robertson. People, all those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. We will break for the latest morning tea ever at 11:10. I'm failing on my duties as the chair.
A couple of representatives from the Yacht Club are here because of the time. Do we have any indication when we might bring that matter back? 11:30?
Well, do we have any indication of what?
We might bring the lease back.
Yeah. Well, I'll have a look at to see what the other papers are. I'll have a conversation with the C, but it doesn't look like there'll be any issue. I am cognizant of the fact that there were other community representatives who were here, and if we change things around off what the Mayor had said previously, we want to make sure that we're fair in regards to the hearing of the paper. So, yeah, the appetite is there to shift it. All right, let's break for. All right, welcome back, everybody. Thank you very much for being back here in a timely fashion. One thing that I wanted to just make sure that I touched on from our previous paper in regards to the annual report was just again reiterating to council staff around the want and the will of council laws to have a wider operational conversation about how we deal with waste and enforcement of illegal dumping. There was issues brought up. There was a subject of the collected and collated targets that this council would like to go through in terms of process. And there were also some points brought up about cost of business, which I guess relates to fees and charges. We have just been through that process, but it's something that we also need to be cognizant of every year, particularly when it's in regards to annual report. Was there anything else that I'd missed in regards to that first paper, Whānau, about the extra things that we want to do moving forward? This isn't your only
minimisation strategy.
Yes, waste minimisation aligned with that waste discussion. And this isn't your only opportunity to bring those things up, like Councillor Alder had alluded to. There are a lot of, and also Councillor Rea, there are a lot of things that kind of sparks your mind as you read through an annual report. There's plenty of opportunity to still bring those things up in the future. I'm going to...
Sorry, just one more
Yes.
thing. I would like some feedback on the possibility of that community snapshot accountability manual.
Yeah. Awesome, thank you, Councillor Rea. Okay, I'm going to move us to page 312, the lease application for Gisborne Yacht Club. I want to acknowledge the public deputations that were given this morning. There's a couple of things that I would like to speak to prior in order to give us a bit of form and some structure for our discussion about the lease application. So one thing I wanted to talk to about is around conflicts of interest. So as was alluded this morning, we've had some people go, I'm conflicted this way, I'm conflicted this way. Those specifically have been our Ngāti Onione whānau resident at Kaiti Beach. That's not more conflicted than the general public. So I do just need to reiterate and state that for clarity of the table and clarity of the room and clarity of the live stream. It's absolutely fine for someone who lives in an area to also be able to discuss that thing that will be happening there. It's absolutely fine for a hapu and iwi member to also discuss those same things. The conflict becomes a bit different, like was also acknowledged this morning, when it's specifically your parent that is and that's making a certain submission. So I did just want to clarify that. I don't want to spend time talking about who's conflicted in regards to what. The other thing too is that this paper is the council receiving the recommendation from the hearings panel. So I am actually going to give the first right to speak to this to the chair of the hearings panel, and then open that up to his committee in regards to speak to the hearing process there. We're all on the same page in regards to this process, whānau? Ka pai, because if we are, I'm going to ask Councillor Robinson to open up actually, is there anything that staff wanted to say first? All right. I'll hand over to Councillor Robinson as chair of the hearings committee.
Mr. Chair, I'll take the paper as read, but in synopsis, the club is seeking a further 21-year lease. That's a 7+7+7. Their current lease expired in 2019, and currently the club occupies the site on a month-to-month tenancy. So that's their right to be there at the moment. There is currently no lease in place, as it were. We had a public hearing submission. We heard from two submitters, both in opposition to the proposed lease. There were no submissions made in support of the lease being granted. There was further discussions held between Ngāti Onione and the club at the encouragement of the committee and facilitated, encouraged by staff, in the hope that a core issue around the use and occupancy of that land could be resolved. Those discussions took place, as was alluded to this morning in the public deputation, but did not result in any agreement as to how the land could be co-shared or co-managed or co-used. We've heard the submissions this morning. Again, there is very strong opposition by Ngāti Onione to this lease been granted because of the alienating effect it has on the hapu and that whenua. We've also heard from the club how they have sought to engage particularly with all aspects of our community. And all of those submissions and factors were really taken into account by the committee. Some were formally received, but also as committee members we were cognizant of these core issues when making our deliberations. This is a really challenging issue because that bit of whenua is a particular legal beast which requires a change of legislation to enable any change in ownership. It currently is vested in the council under as we all know, an historic pathway which leads us to today. The options that the committee considered are set out on page 32. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. And it was with a majority decision that the panel recommends option 4, which was a 5-year lease with a further right of renewal. By way of clarification, I sought from staff some further information during the break as to whether a further right of renewal could be premised upon a factor such as the club and Ngāti Oneone reaching agreement on co-use or co-management. Bit harsh to put the staff member on the spot like that, and it might be that that's not possible, but it may be that it would be possible to have such a term in order to encourage an agreement on the use of that land. However, right now the recommendation under number 4 is a 5+5 without any such term or condition as a caveat to a further right of renewal for 5 years. So that is the paper before you, Mr. Chair. If I have any questions, I'm sure Ms. Bizza will be happy to answer.
Well, thank you, Mr. Robertson. I did want to open first to your committee, if that's okay, to see if there were any comments that the committee wanted to make. Councillor Gregory.
Thank you. This has been quite a long, drawn-out process, and I see really no winners at the end of the day with our recommendation. And because of the legal requirement that we have, as a panel member, I saw this as the fairest way to proceed and move forward, acknowledging the submissions from Ngāti Oneone and also listening this morning to the Gisborne Yacht Club submission. So that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gregory. Councillor Thompson, any comments?
Yeah, I just want to just mention the good that the Yacht Club does bring to Gisborne, the good things they do. They are very inclusive, and they're sort of, like they said, they're sort of stuck in the middle of what's not really their issue as such. And I also just want to acknowledge the grievance and the wrongs from the past, but how we can navigate what we've got to address that. I feel a lot of this is outside our realms of what we can actually do as a council, and it's probably more an issue with Crown than ourselves.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. I'm just going to throw back just quickly to Councillor Robinson, and then I'll open the paper up for discussion.
Just one point, thank you, Mr. Chair, I forgot to note. It was submitted to us this morning that not having the surety of a 7+7+7 would prevent the Yacht Club from engaging in maintenance on the building. There is a clause in the lease currently that they're obligated to maintain the buildings in a state of good repair. There was no rationale given as to why a 7 + 7 + 7 versus a 5 + 5 would prevent maintenance. But it's a term of the current lease, which I imagine would be a term of any further lease. Just want to note that.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Of course, I do just want to, Council table, I'm going to be running a tight ship with regards to this discussion about this topic. Councillor Parata and Councillor Foster.
Yeah, I acknowledge the importance of the Brisbane Yacht Club and particularly the importance of recreation for the well-being and wealth of our community and our region. I do acknowledge that. I do, however, think the importance of what Ngāti Onioni are doing in terms of re-establishing their mana to their whenua, the actual whenua. I think that is important. And that's not to say that there can't be a relationship outside of this, but we've heard from mana whenua, and mana whenua have asked. And just in terms of whether or not that the yacht club will look after their whare, I feel like you should do that anyway, especially if, yeah. So that's neither here nor there for me personally, and that doesn't sway my decision or my vote. And I do just want to consider potentially rewording the recommendation, which is that recommendation 4, because at the moment it says 5 + 5. That's 10 years. 10 years is a long time. And I know that it's the opposite for the yacht club. They're saying that 10 years is not a long time and 21 years is more appropriate. But 10 years is a long time to not have access to whenua. And even though that's a long process, I feel like potentially what we should do is 5 years plus look at what that might be in 5 years. Potential renewal, if that's where it goes. But 5 + 5 feels, 10 is a long time, is what I'm trying to say. Thank you.
Councillor Parata, just to also remind us as well that this is a recommendation that has come from a hearings committee. We are council, we can make whatever decisions we want, but the reason to establish committees is for them to do the heavy lifting. So just to get in front of, just in regards to that. After Councillor Parata was Councillor Foster.
Thank you. The Yacht Club actually did do a submission. They did an original submission when the lease came up to council. And I just want to read something that council went back to the Yacht Club for, because they could not present at the hearing because council made a mistake. We acknowledge that council staff did not advise the Yacht Club to submit if they wanted to secure a right to present at a hearing of any submission. We undertake to review our processes with regards to informing the applicant of the process involved in granting a lease. So, you know, unfortunately, they never got a chance to say what they wanted to at the hearing, which was the most critical part for the hearings committee to make their decision. I've lived around Kaiti Beach for over 40 years, and I want to just focus on the use, on the buildings, not the land. The use of that building is used daily by the whole community. The slipway that they built years ago, there's probably 30 to 40 cars on that a day, maybe more. It's like a state highway down that beach. And the Yacht Club building itself has been regularly vandalised. They repair it straight away, and it's upkept to a really good standard for the community to use. Even if it's not open, there's people always on the veranda, there's always people picnicking outside, there's people sleeping outside there at night and using the veranda if it's raining. So, you know, there's cars, it's a lot of activity on that building. So, you know, I commend the Yacht Club for keeping the building upkept, and I can understand that they want to have, you know, a longer lease so they can have a surety that the investment in their building is going to have longevity. I know, you know, after hearing Ngāti Onioni's plea this morning, I can understand where they are coming from. This is not a council issue, it's a government issue, it's a treaty claim. It's totally outside of our realm. You know, all we should be focusing on is the lease requirement for the Yacht Club, whether we should be giving it or not. They're asking for a 21-year lease. our hearings committee has recommended a 5 by 5, but they didn't even hear the yacht club submission at the time. So, you know, there's some pretty bit of concerns out there from this whole process that we've gone through. I guess at the end of the day, a compromise is a 5 by 5, but you know, the yacht club has been such a great asset to this community, and given a lot of, you know, a lot of events that are around the place, they'll allow their boats and put out buoys because that's what they got. They're expertise at doing that, and there's a lot of different events that they've assisted, and same with emergencies. So, you know,
Thanks, Councillor Foster.
I think I'll just leave it at that at this stage because yeah, I'll just see what the feeling is around the room. But yeah, I just yeah, this whole thing is kind of outside our environment. We can only do what we can do with the tools that we've got.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. I'm just going to hand it over to Ms. Fizu about to make some comments in regards to some things you just said.
In respect of the process, so the standard process for lease notification is they are publicly notified with comment and anybody can submit. We as council staff do not encourage or discourage any party from submitting. That is not our role. For the yacht club to have presented at a hearing, they needed to submit. The fact of the matter is they didn't. Some clubs submit, some clubs do not. Absolutely, council did not directly advise the club. Perhaps you should submit, but we don't directly advise anybody. We did not directly advise Ngāti Yoni to submit. We do not directly advise any party who might be interested in a lease to submit. So while, yes, the yacht club did not realise that they needed to put in a submission, it was ultimately, I believe, their choice to not engage into that public process.
Thank you, Ms. Fizu. Any other, Councillor Tupara.
The Chair. Yeah, I do want to acknowledge the panel. Obviously, the decision wasn't easy, and I see there on page 322 that it was a majority decision. So it was a tough job for that panel to get through. And I think the nature of the submissions indicate the difficulty. However, saying that, this particular site is not just any site where a recreational body can occupy and undertake their activity. It's a very sacred place. It's a very sacred place for Ngāti Rone, but also for Tūrana Nui a Kiwa and the Tairāwhiti as a whole. It's a place where the mountain meets the moana. It's a place that has whakapapa, links whenua to the ocean, and the ocean back to the land. And with that, a responsibility for Ngāti Rone in particular to undertake a role as kaitiaki in that place. And when they're unable to do that, they are weakened in their ability to act as tangata whenua and tangata moana for that place. And they have that responsibility, and that's a responsibility that they whakapapa into. It's not by their choice. But their ancestors set that ground rule down, and Ngāti Rone has been endeavouring to do their best around that since the arrival of Cook. And even in Cook's time, that place was a sacred place. When Cook came on shore from the Endeavour, he breached some of that sacredness. And that breach has been in place since that time up to this very time. And council not having a role in that is not a true statement, because council is implicit in the treaty relationship that the Crown has with mana whenua. And as a local authority, we were bound to, under legislation of the Crown, and that gives us a responsibility back to the treaty. And I think council acknowledges that. We know that. And we endeavour to do our utmost to maintain that as a council. And we should not let issues like this weaken our stance on how we uphold the treaty and our relationship with mana whenua. And in saying that, council has already acknowledged that the sacredness of that place by leaning in and developing or partly developing Pui Kaiti, by putting in the 1,000-year walkway by developing titirangi with tracks and plantings and stabilisation of that place, by securing the top of the maunga. We're acknowledging that rohe is significant not only to Ngāti Unione, but to the Tairāwhiti. And because of our treaty role, I feel like I can't support the recommendation here, and my preference is for option 1. That it is time for Council to say to our people, to our mana whenua people, that the time has come when we seriously take our role as a local authority under the Crown to insist that treaty rights are not further breached by the actions and omissions of the Council. Kia ora.
Do you have any other Councillor Pāhuru?
Thank you. Chair. Tēnā ka mihi kia koutou Ngāti Unione ko tai mai. Tai me o koutou kōrero a koutou nawe, tēnā koutou. I too thank the panel for taking this kaupapa through to where we're considering it now. It has been a long drawn-out process, as Councillor Gregory has said, and everybody has waited far too long for an outcome. In listening to the public deputations this morning, that was very helpful, and also to you, Councillor Robinson, for your brief as well for us this afternoon has really been helpful in terms of understanding the terms of the lease currently. That it expired in 2019, and currently the Yacht Club have a month-by-month tenancy, acknowledging that they have been keeping up the buildings as well. However, coming to this table, as a Māori Ward councillor, one of the things that drives me is there no further harm. And there no further harm to mana whenua in particular for me. And in listening to Charlotte this morning talk about in 2030, there'll be 100 years of alienation of Ngāti Unione from their whenua. We have to stop that. Her suggestion of 5 years, I think, is very gracious. And in that 5 years, she talked about giving Ngāti Unione time to work through the stuff that's not within our realm around this council table, but working with Crown around having the change of legislation needed to get the ownership of the flag where it rightfully belongs. So I guess my position is as Councillor Tupara's. I did think about the option 4 with the 5+5, but like Councillor Parata said, that's 10 years, which is long. If we could just take out the other 5 and have 5 years, that would be preferable. But if that isn't, if that can't be amended, that option 4, then I would be in support of option 1 as put by Councillor Tupara. But yeah, imperative for me is no further harm. I think if we were to grant a lease to the Yacht Club for what they're wanting, 7x7x7, that would be doing far more harm to mana whenua, and I would not support that. Ane tēnā.
Any other comments from councillors? Councillor Tell.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of work around this table with all sorts of sporting clubs and trying to come up with a way to actually be able to support them with facilities, and there's a lot of clubs in this district at the moment that are facing real hardship as far as maintaining building, being able to upgrade buildings. I am definitely not in favour of cutting one of them out. So I'll be supporting the recommendation from the hearings, and I think that's until an act is changed and we're directed in a different way, that is not our job. This is our job here today. So,
thanks, Councillor Telford.
Yes, I agree very much with what Larry said, and also Councillor Telfer. We're in a sticky situation here, and it's potentially going to be a landmark decision. We're not going to please everybody all of the time, but I do think there's a real compromise in option 4. What happens to the land is out of our control, and the two can overlap. If there's a 10-year lease there, it will be Ngāti Onioni's role to look after or not the yacht club. But while the yacht club is our responsibility, I feel we need to make some decision to give them some longevity. Thank you.
Councillor Older. Councillor Rea. Mr. Rea.
Kia ora tātou. Before I speak to this paper, I just want to advise that I will not be voting on the paper today. I believe there is a real perception of bias as that not so much because of my ties and links and whakapapa to Ngāti Onione, but the fact that my mother submitted the submission on behalf of the marae as the marae representative. So I will not be voting on the paper today because I do not want my participation in the paper to endanger either Ngāti Onione's position or the Yacht Club's position or the Council's position. I don't want any party to be in some way accountable because there is a perceived bias from my judgment. So I just want to make that very clear. In terms of some of the views that have been shared at this table, I feel like there is a real, that the scales have been tipping through every comment, and that has come from one single person. The tails skip to the extreme of one side and then they tip back to the extreme on the other side. And that there actually needs to be some balance. I think that the words, it's not our responsibility, is a cop-out, is that we need to take some responsibility for the decisions that we make, that we are mandated under the local government legislation to ensure that our partnerships with mana whenua, iwi, hapu are upheld. And although that is not specifically mentioned within the lease, if we view the lease in silo, then that's our only obligation. But we encompass that with what we all signed up to, which is the local government legislation as being a representative of this council. We have to consider other documents. It's not just this lease. I think that what is very unfortunate is that the Yacht Club has been given 77 years to have this relationship with Ngāti Onione. 77 years. And up until now that the lease has come into question, that relationship and those discussions have only happened after 77 years. And I think it's poor. And I would say that of any engagement from any mana whenua to any other group who may be applying in this manner. We have just put into place the Te Tiriti Compass here in the council. We as councillors and our kaimahi are expected to uphold that. Any board members that we appoint to board committees are expected to uphold that. Now that we're moving this out further, do we also expect our leaseholders, our contractors, anybody who engage with council to also uphold these responsibilities which we have identified as being important? So that's another consideration for leases moving forward. I do not discount the contributions that the Yacht Club has made to this community, but there is a lack of reflection of what Ngāti Onione and Te Pūo Rāori have made to this community. We serviced 30,000 homes in Gisborne over COVID response, over 18 months. 30,000 homes in Kaiti and Elgin, mainly. We provided them with food. Over 18 months, when the cyclone hit, we provided cyclone relief to more than 25,000 homes. Over 15 months, and that's only what Pohorawiri and Ngāti Onione has contributed to this community in the last 5 years, let alone the last 100 years. So I think this tipping of scales has to stop, and there needs to be a balanced, fair, equal view. All of us should view the pros of each side, not just looking to the pros of one side. The Yacht Club offer a unique value to this community. Ngāti Onione and Te Pohorawiri Marae offer a unique contribution to this community. So how can our decision today be mutually beneficial to both parties involved? I did feel that clearly in the kōrero that happened this morning, that there is some leeway, that one of the two are offering leeway and the other doesn't want to talk about it. So I did feel that from the presentations this morning. So I really do urge all of us to, because for me it is extremely clear from every person who has spoke to this paper that you're either on one fence or on one side of the fence or the other side of the fence. And I need to ask you all before you go in and make this vote, because I will not be voting to balance your vote. See it from pros and cons from each side of the fence, not one. Kia ora tātou.
Councillor Tibbs.
Ka te mihi ana ki a tāngo tō tō kōrero, Councillor Ria. Kei whia mai tēnei kōrero roto i tēnei whare. E tuataitanga kia rangona atu tēnā momo kōrero ki konei. Mihi ana ki a tātou. I want to acknowledge you, Councillor Ria, to place so articulately as you just did the balance of scales that we know Māoridom is capable of doing and has been doing for a long time. I mihi to this kaupapa here, Pauranga Hua, to us and what that represents in this room. I'm mihi to the fact that this is called Te Awarua and we are in the bowels of Te Awarua right now with this actual decision to be made. I want to table option 5. Option 5 aligns with what was said this morning, a stay of 5 years, which is the balance to allow a space to move forward that is not offered over here, but actually preferentializes one over the other. That's a win-lose. I'm asking for option 5 to be tabled. Kia ora. Can I have a seconder, please?
There's no original response in regards to it. In regards to what I was just asking, was there any other councillor that wanted to say anything? Because if not,
Chair, sorry, can we just clarify? So I understand Councillor Tibble has just put an option on the table with option 5. Yeah. She's proposing a 5-year lease with no further right of renewal. Is that what I understand has just happened?
she did, but there's also been other things that have been put forward as well. There's been put forward this, the standing recommendation. There's also been put forward option 1. Yeah, there have been people who have been put forward over the course of this quarter.
Yeah, I just want to clarify because, Mr. Chair, as I understanding orders, if the councillor has put forward a new option, it's not on the floor, does it have to be seconded for that to be considered? Just can we have some clarification around that?
But then if it's seconded to be considered, then then we can debate it then. But there have been other options, and this is the reason why I spoke to the other options that have been put out there as well prior to this, because there may have been an appetite to also second those ones. Please. Were you wanting to say something supplementary to that?
No, I just want clarification because of what Councillor Tibble had just said. I wanted to make clarification from the chair on that.
Councillor Gregory?
When council sets up a lease, it's got a notice of when it's for whatever years plus 5 plus 5. Is there a reason why that happens? Is there any reason why we wouldn't just have 5? And there is none.
Council can recommend to us a grant of a term of a lease for any.
Well, I would then support Councillor Tibble's idea and move that we grant a lease for 5 years, which is an amount of time that hopefully something can be sorted out between Ngāti Oneone and the Yacht Club, and then we go from there. So I'd like to move that.
I think it was moved by Councillor Tibble.
Okay, I'll second.
Well, yeah, we still need to still need to put it, and everyone needs to pass it and things like that. So it's just helpful. The
I suggested the option 1 in favour of.
Move it.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
In favour of what's being presented now, of the 5 year, I would withdraw any suggestion of option 1.
Okay. I see. I'm going to have my bit now. I see that there are two kind of issues here. Like Councillor Rea has outlined, these decisions are our responsibility. It's our responsibility. We're elected to sit around this table and hear from our community who want this thing, and also our community who want this thing, and for us to find that space in the middle for us to be able to have compromise and co-occupy. There's an issue here in regards to lease, and we're expected to make a decision in regards to that today. But there is also a higher level issue here as well that we need to really discuss as a council. And it's about hoki whenua, it's about land bank. We have had these conversations, and they're not relatively new conversations, whānau. I just need to say, we've already made commitments to our toko maru whānau in regards to return of land up there to Manawatu. I do see that there's an opportunity in order to be able to have this discussion moving forward. Yes, there are other legal complications. Yes, there are acts that need to change. All of those kinds of things, but we're the org that's the interface for this community in regards to conversations like that. So I would like to see us, or maybe some comment from our CEO in regards to that part of the kaupapa. We do need to put the lease kaupapa to bed, but I do just want to say that there were other things that were spoken about today during presentations and then also in these discussions about the wider, even from those who supported even from those of our community who were supporting the yacht club in the kōrero, they also acknowledged that there was grievance. There was also acknowledgement of a shift and a move in regards to being able to meet those Ngāti Oneone aspirations. So I just wanted to ask if there was any comment in regards to that second kaupapa.
Thank you through the chair. So and that's correct. They are two different processes. They are interrelated, and the council does have a role to either advocate or support mana whenua and their process or the journey that they go on within which to acquire the land. And we've seen that from local government New Zealand, other councils around New Zealand where they have done so and supported the returning back. So the lease matter is something for you to determine in terms of what's been put on the table by way of an amendment. There is another option also that you can think about in terms of whether or not you want to include another recommendation that does actually talk about the council's role in advocating and supporting mana whenua in terms of that process to get the land returned. So it's up to you if you would like.
As the current chair, I think that that's a really important discussion for us to have, but I would like to have a substantive discussion in regards to that. Because at the moment we're talking about a lease of a spot that's between the maunga and the moana that Councillor Tukura has talked about. There's a wider kōrero in regards to that, so I would like to see that kind of come back to us in its fullness. Are we comfortable with that being the direction forward in regards to that?
I'm just waiting for my right to reply. Right to reply, Mr. Chair.
Right to reply belongs to the person who moved.
Oh, yes, but yeah, okay,
yeah. But prior to reply for the person who moved, anyone that hasn't had a chance to have a go. Right.
Can I just speak to the new motion?
As the chair of the hearings committee, yes, you can.
As the chair of the hearings committee and as a lawyer of 22 years experience, I never forget a scenario we discussed in law school, which was two parties fighting over a tree. And it turned out when you asked for the questions, one party wanted the fruit, the other wanted the bark. But they went to war, they went to court, and it wasn't until someone sat down and talked to the parties, what do you actually want? That they realised they didn't have mutually exclusive interests. They actually it could be a win-win. What we are talking about here actually is the use of the premises. That's the essence of what we've talked about here, is Ngāti Ōniona is asked to co-share those premises. A lease gives 100% ownership and control to one party. And the Yacht Club is asking for that to be them. Ngāti Ōniona is asked for the ability to co-share that space in this lease. Now, we don't have the ability to do that in a lease, but we do have the ability to force the parties to have further discussions in a time frame which isn't beyond people's lifespans, and make those discussions happen. And if they don't happen in, say, 5 years, then it's a clear indication they're probably not going to happen, and at that point, we need to take further ownership of the issue and really resolve it. Okay, so that's my little...
Thank you very much, Councillor Robinson. Councillor Tibble, right reply.
I just wanted to say that the comments that you made, Councillor Wharehinga, in terms of the wider conversation, the substantive conversation, must necessarily happen. In regards to what is in front of us at the moment, that is an added value conversation that cannot be lost. But what we primarily have here is shoring up a lease. That is what we have the ability to make a clear decision on at this moment. The value of having a win-win at this space and not a win-loss is imperative at this time for the relationships that council moves forward as the owner of the capacity to grant lease, which then gives back comfort to the community. The community is being heard. This is a really important time for us in that matter. It also means that the Yacht Club continues with a stay of 5 years, sure, with no certainty or surety for the length going forward. But it's also equally important to understand that Ngāti Ōniona has not had any certainty or surety for such a long time in these matters. So on that basis, what we have here is a decision being made upon wisdom, upon love and past experience, playing its time right out here and now, where we can do better. And so today's decision is about doing better in the name of mana whenua, in the name of community memberships that want to also be able to participate to adding value to all Tairāwhiti. So thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Yacht Club. Thank you, Ngāti Ōniona. Kia ora tātou.
Just for clarity, I'm going to ask for division in regards to voting, so we can make sure that we've got the numbers sorted and things like that. So it's been moved by an option 5 of a lease of 5 years. Has been moved by Councillor Tibble, seconded by Councillor Gregory. All those in favour, you want hands, Jill? All those in favour, hands with aye. All those against. It's carried. Oh, there was obviously an abstention.
Can we have a note of that Aubrey has abstained for the minutes?
Yes, yeah. I was just about to note that. Just an abstention from Councillor Ria.
Ka tia ke rā te mihi atu ki te whakataunga o te wānei e. He aroha ki ngā iwi katoa o te taira whiti e. We give thanks for this decision made today in honouring both parties as we move forward to the future and consider greater things yet again.
Page 290, which is our Board Appointments and Remuneration Policy Update for adoption. All right. Is there any opening comments you'd like to make?
This paper recommends an update to the Board Appointments and Remuneration Policy, which was last updated in 2021. The significant changes being it takes into account the Appointments Committee as a committee of the whole. It removes the Eastwood Trust from the policy as Council does not appoint to the Eastwood Hill Board, and it outlines changes to the appointment process in 7.3 to 7.6. And also changes to reflect organisations' constitutions or trust deeds that may allow for longer tenure in this policy.
Happy to move it, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, moved by Councillor Robertson.
I was going to ask a question.
So we've got a question. We plan on seconding? No. I plan on second. Oh, so Councillor Grell will second. So moved by Councillor Robertson. Right, down.
Sorry, what page are we on?
290. And we have a question of Councillor Gregory, then Councillor Allen.
Thank you. Can you just tell me why it was changed, the Appointments Committee, from being an Appointments Committee to a Committee of the Whole?
I'll answer that, because I'm on the Appointments Committee, and it's because everybody that was around the council table would go, hey, we want to be involved in the Appointments Committee.
Yeah, that's
literally the reason.
I was quite happy with it.
Oh, yeah, we would go and Wānanga as an appointments committee and then literally come back to here and hey, like kind of what happened just in the paper prior. So it just made more sense to have everybody involved. Councillor Holden.
Thank you, Chair. I can get past the administration creating a short list because we get to check both sides. I'm okay with that. But what I'm not okay with is 7.6, where the council, sorry, page 304, where the council, the chair of the appointments committee approves skilled and competency is being removed. To me, it's most important that us as councillors have some input into the skill set of incoming directors. So I won't vote for this with that statement in there. We need to bring that back up.
So through the chair, that's not to say that you wouldn't have input in it. It's what it's removing is the formalisation of that. So just trying to get a little bit more lean in there. So I wonder if we can capture in that strategic review and needs assessment, future skill requirements and consultation or the council, you know, how the chair will, or of the committee would send out what are we looking for? So that was really just to not have to go through an approval process at a meeting to get that done.
Why? No, I don't agree with that. It's not just a consulting situation, it's quite an important part of an appointment. And it was in there originally for a good reason. I don't see a good reason for removing it.
So are you saying that you want council to approve the skills and competencies or feed into the skills and competencies?
At least approve. Not just be consulted, approve, have the say on whether that's what the skills are set is required.
So through the chair, your core competencies that are already outlisted in your policy. So any further would be what we have to do, which would be sending around a request for any particular areas of expertise. You do use your board matrix.
and the chair would fall into that process. If you are requesting us that we come back to our meeting to formalise that, we are effectively adding an additional time and a step in a process that we have not done before.
So, has this not been applied before?
No, so that's been taken out because it's relevant in terms of the approval process diagram. So you captured it in that first strategic review, and then future skills requirements have been identified.
I understand the concern part, but I'm thinking of how we've done things before, and I feel like, having been, say, the person that has led on behalf the trust tai rāwhiti process, we did talk about our what we wanted as a council and all of those kinds of things. We did have that conversation, and that did feed into the nature of how we advertised and who we shortlisted and things like that. However, I think we're doing the thing that you're asking for, but I do get Councillor Aura's point about ensuring that that's spoken to in a meaningful way inside of this process, because while we do this here as humans in this current iteration of council, the process may be differently applied in a different iteration.
And so, through the chair, unless we broaden out that grey box, that the chair, maybe if we can capture it just in that first grey box, so it's not a green standout on its own, and it brings into what so the chair, it's still the chair of the appointments committee that approves it.
Because what I've done is, as the chair, I've socialised and gathered the skills and competencies that we think, and then gone, and then when that bit of work has been collated for me, I'll look at that and go, yeah, that reflects what the council, what we've had that discussion with the council. Are you comfortable with?
No, I still think we should have the last say. We should be the ones that sign it off. It's one thing giving direction, then there's a description written. We should sign that description off.
As a whole council?
There could be a memo sent out. This is certain, do you approve?
I personally think that that's a chair responsibility, but thank you. We can still have that discussion, but we have some other hands up. Councillor Tibble.
Thank you, Councillor Hinga. Mr. Chair, I find it perplexing that we as an entire committee would be involved in operations to determine what needs to be served up to governance. That from my perspective, that's in the anthill. We need to stay up with the eagles and allow the mayor and operations through the CE to make that decision and serve that material for our inspection.
Any other questions or kōrero? Councillor Taufa.
Just one query. Page 298, just under the Gisborne Holdings CCPO, it just states there that a limit of one director can be a member or employee of the local authority. This is on GHL's board. Then it goes on to say that basically the Constitution prohibits a director from taking up a job at council or as an employee of the council or as a councillor. It contradicts itself. It says that one person can be on the board, but then nobody can be a councillor. Am I reading that right?
That would make Josh illegal.
Yeah, like it's totally contradictory.
Well, no, what it's saying is that one of the GHL directors can't be
But Josh is a director and
an
he's
employee or as a councillor.
Or as a councillor.
Are we talking, I just have to refer to the Constitution. Sorry.
It's not more than one. Not more than one can be.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it says not more than a limit of one, but then it goes on to say the Constitution prohibits a director from taking up a job at council as an employee or as a councillor.
Is that after that?
It doesn't limit us and the other way around.
Oh, I see.
Probably really worded.
So,
Let's have a look at the Constitution. And I'll
so just for clarification.
Yes, that's clear. GHL's constitution prohibits the director of GHL from taking up a job at council as an employee or as a councillor. Yeah, that just means that none of them can come over this way and clip here and there.
So is that saying that if my 9-year term on GHL wasn't coming up for to end, that as a director I could have stood and been a councillor sitting on this side of the table as well as that side?
No, couldn't do that. It says you could not do that.
That's what that means.
We can't go this way, we
Yeah,
can go
we
that
can go
way.
that way.
Which is why you didn't.
Could have gone the other way, from here over there.
Clear as mud? No, so should we just unpick this a bit more?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make it clear.
So you're correct, councillor Telfer. If you're a director, so we've appointed, the council have appointed directors onto GHL. And you were there for, yeah, as you say, like 9 years. The elections come up. You couldn't then be dual, so you couldn't come back this way and be a councillor and a director on GHL. That's what the Constitution is saying. But once you're on this side, the council could say, actually, we want you back in there to be our observer, so we should put you in there.
Okay.
Same as a...
Well, is there anything else, councillor Telfer? Councillor Thompson.
I think it's just saying, same as GDC staff can't be a councillor. If they get in, they have to leave their GDC.
Councillor Pahuri.
Maybe just too confusing for us, then it's going to be confusing for other people, so maybe just make it clearer would be great, thank you.
All right, yes, councillor Alden.
I hear Councillor Tootle correctly when she suggested this was an operations thing, that staff make the selection description. Is that what she said?
No, that's not what I understood.
Oh, because I just say it's important that governance selects governance, and governance should have strong input into the job description.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is. I feel like that is done.
It's covered.
Yeah. If there are no other questions, we have a mover in Councillor Robinson and a seconder in Councillor Rea. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Against, Councillor Alder. Would like that noted?
Yes, I do. On that one point.
On that one. All right, and let's break for lunch. It's 12:30. All right, councillors, I'd like to take us to page 328, which is the Disaster Relief Trust annual report. And the speaking stick.
But I take mostly it's red. One of the process, because it is considered a council controlled organisation, we have to report on it separately, and you have to report. It is a charitable trust, and so therefore how we account for it, making sure that it's transparent, is to the community, especially when we receive donations received from the public. Just for a little bit of the process, and probably a little bit of a reference back to the annual report. In substance, the annual report has been completed with the auditors. They'll be having the representation letter completed soon. That's the last part of that process. And this, it's still within audit, but they've mostly gone through. So there's only a little bit more to do with the final parts. Because it's a little bit smaller, they've focused on the council process. So that's just for reference. But happy to take any questions with regards to the trust itself.
Thank you very much, Ms. Foreman. Are there any questions in regards to That's of the annual report. Councillor Tibble, would you like to speak to the paper? Because there's yourself and the Mayor on the committee. If Kate Pipe not, I just thought I'd just offer.
Sure. I wanted just to say on behalf of the Trust itself, we're very thankful to all those who granted donations to us. There were 4 major donors to that space. We love the fact that much of the commentary that came back is people so happy to be helped in our probably most difficult time that we've experienced in the region. Any excess monies, because there's monies after the June date of this financial year, and this annual report will be dedicated towards the bridges. And so really, at the end of it, we're happy that those who were most in need of help got the help, and that was in the matter of 317 applications and 244 property applications. So, Rawe, tēnā tātou katoa.
Tēnā, you happy to move?
Thank you.
Second by Councillor Ria. If there are no other questions, I really do want to reiterate the generosity and the generosity out there for the people that gave to the Trust and this relief fund in our time of need. Thank you very much to our trustees on the Disaster Relief Trust. Being moved by Councillor Tibble, seconded by Councillor Ria. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. I move us, thank you very much, Ms. Foreman. I move us to page 358. Ms. Noble, Ms. Buchanan.
Just introducing Tessa Buchanan. She is a new principal working in the strategic planning team and is the author of the paper and is more than capable of walking you through the paper and any questions you may have.
First off, I do want to acknowledge that you've been sitting down the back there for the majority of the day. So, so thank you very much for your patience with our council votes to robustly discussing the subjects. I'll hand it over to you, Ms. McKinnon.
Kia ora koutou. So this paper is proposing a changes to the policy on dangerous dams, which would then become the policy on dangerous earthquake-prone and flood-prone dams. This policy is required under the Building Act. Since it was adopted in 2007, there have been several changes to the Building Act and the regulations that define several terms in it have come into force this year. So the proposal is to update the policy to those better. The policy has no issues have ever been, no notices have ever been issued under the policy. It only comes into action when if a dam was identified as dangerous by the dam owner, usually by Councillor Robinson, thank you very much, provided some feedback yesterday for us, which was very useful. So I've made some changes to the statement of proposal. So we're tabling an updated document for adoption today, which you've all been provided with. There's one further change, which was to the date of the consultation beginning on October 29. In a nutshell.
Awesome. So just to reiterate, the updated document is the one that's tabled this morning. So all of the edits that came through from Councillor feedback. Any questions? Oh, Councillor Robinson and Councillor Holmes.
I'm really happy to table this policy, and I really want to thank the staff for this, because having sat and worked through the regs and the Act, it is a dog's breakfast. I do not envy you trying to make a public edible version of those ingredients, because it was ugly. I spent hours and hours and hours just working through them and just jumped back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So well done. A much more user-friendly version, and hopefully we don't have any issues with this damn policy. Got an FS, yes. But I have one question. If you can clarify, please, the due date for dam owners of classifiable dams was 3 months after the regs came in, which expired a couple of months ago. we are the principal owner of most classifiable dams in Te Tairāwhiti. Have we complied with that notice under the Act?
My understanding is that it's in progress. They're just waiting for the what are they called? The classification certificates to come through.
Right.
So I think, missed that deadline.
Did any of the owners of classifiable dams comply with the list of requirement?
We will be contacting them all before the consultation to make them aware of their responsibilities as well.
Yes.
So we can make sure that it does get in track.
Just supplementary, Mr. Chair, the penalties for failing to comply with that were very significant, like $50,000, I think, for failing to just file that report. So just so any other dam owner doesn't think that we are, allowing it or condoning it, I think we should, as a matter of urgency, advise them all that they have this deadline that they're obligated to comply with, and that their failure is not because we condone it. Bye.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. And also, just to reiterate as well, that this paper is about is around a draft policy, and that this will be going out for consultation. Councillor Alden.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know where it exists in the new paper, but on the old one, it was around the definition of the dam. And what you consider included, and there's an example of the Te River, including a dam that blocks a watercourse or floodplain, resulting in an increased risk to others. There's an unconsented dam. We did exactly that on the Te
The definition of dangerous dams is what's required under the Building Act. That's taken straight from the Building Act. That's what's used in the policy.
So you can't change that?
Fine by statute.
Any other questions? Do I have a seconder for the paper? It was moved by Councillor Robinson. Second by Councillor Green. There are no other questions or comments? I'll move the paper. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Look forward to the consultation piece coming back. Okay, I'll move us to page 397, approval to review the alcohol control bylaw.
No, Makarand is online as he wasn't feeling 100% today and didn't want to come in and pass germs around. Makarand. So this is another one of our bylaws that is coming up for a statutory review. We're not asking you to make any choices about what is or isn't in the bylaw at this stage. This is simply to determine that yes, we go ahead with the bylaw review, and two, that a bylaw is still an appropriate way of regulating alcohol control matters in public spaces. So this is a tool that we use as a council to decide that certain areas, the public spaces in certain areas, should be free from alcohol consumption. And then once that restriction's in place, it gives the police the ability to enforce should they wish to use their discretion to do so. Without that being in place, they have limited powers, unless someone's actually being disorderly. And just to note that we have proposed to hold a workshop before we start any consultation process on the scope of the review.
Awesome. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Foster.
Yeah, I just want to make the point for the public. This has nothing to do with the local alcohol policy, which deals with the licensed premises. So this is totally separate. So if people think we're reviewing that, we're not.
100% correct, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Foster.
Yeah, thanks. I'm happy to move a bylaw. I believe is the best appropriate measure. But I do have a question. This particular bylaw can be quite contentious because the only time really it should be activated if the situation that it is needed for is causing a major problem. So, when we say a bylaw, we usually say this is it, and there's no variance, there's we have to abide by this, and we give this to the police because you're drinking a beer on a beach where you shouldn't be, or whatever. But when you have a situation when you've got a big congregation of people regularly having a drink in a public place, then it becomes a problem. So, you know, my problem really is that is the bylaw the right mechanism? Because this is not a, you know, we don't want to target people that are just going to have a nice recreational wine somewhere in a supposed public place. We want to target the people that are abusing that privilege. So, yeah, that's my question. Is a bylaw the appropriate measure? Because once we set a bylaw, that rule is enforceable by police, you know. So, I mean, we've just set a bylaw with a dog control thing, which really isn't really that well administered. But anyway, that's beside the point. I'm not going to go there. But you know, that's why the question: why a bylaw is the appropriate? Is there another mechanism that we can use? Because you know, we have a lot of respectable people out there that would not abuse the situation, but there are some that do, and regularly.
Through you, Chair, I guess the options are, if you don't think a bylaw is the most appropriate mechanism, then it is education and awareness, and that the police can then only intervene when someone is actually causing a disorder.
Yeah. Yeah.
So obviously the police use their discretion in terms of when they do and don't enforce a
right.
bylaw. It's not going to be high on their list of priorities unless, as you say, it's a congregation of people actually causing an issue.
That's what I like to hear. Yeah, I mean, if it's police discretion, well, then I'm happy to support the bylaw. But yeah, I just needed to mention that because you know, I'm seeing some huge abuse of some privileges around the place, and we're all seeing a lot of it, and there's some other areas. But and I do note that there's a lot of councils that have designated all beaches in their area. You know, which is, but we're not discussing that at the moment anyway.
No, but an important thing to bear in mind is to where you think this bylaw restrictions may or may not be.
Yeah.
You know, you can discuss that as the next step.
I'm happy to move it as well.
Is it possible to add with discretion?
Was that, sorry?
Is it possible to add using discretion?
Well, that's something that the police will ultimately do with any enforcement power. There's always a level of discretion that comes with how that enforcement power is exercised. I can't direct the police what to do.
I think we're starting to get like slightly head into the review part of it. Like we're making the decision that one, we want to still have a bylaw, and two, we want staff to do up the work to in order for us to review that bylaw. So those are the decisions that we're making at the moment. It sounds like we're actually keen on doing both, because I agree. Let's have some things in regards to, let's have conversations about the discretion stuff, about the concerns and how our community utilise our spaces in terms of consumption of alcohol. What's practical in terms of being able to enforce all of those kinds of things, but that's in the review piece of the kōrero. I did have Councillor Gregory and Councillor Older. Hands up.
Thank you. I note that we're going to have a workshop, did you say?
Yep.
Would that be open to the public, that workshop? Media, I mean, like, would it be an open workshop?
I don't know why it wouldn't be.
Yeah. It just feels a little bit like we just shift the problem out again. The people that drink around the homeless people that drink around the cenotaph drink there because that's the edge of where they're allowed to be. So you take that away and then they'll go to the next edge. And we're just acknowledging we have a big problem in this town with homeless people and addiction.
Thank you, Councillor Gregory. So you also agree that we need a bylaw as an appropriate way, and that we should review it? Right?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Awesome. Because Councillor Foster still needs a seconder for the...
I thought that Tony...
I was thinking it. Did you put that? I was thinking I was thinking it.
I'm the one taking the notes. Was Councillor Foster?
Sorry. I was thinking it.
Councillor... Councillor Alder.
Thank you, Chair. Just my concern is that the last bylaw tried to pass has been shelved, and can you assure us that that is progressing as well? Through.
Do you mean the local alcohol policy?
The sensitive sites.
Yes, so we are about to start very targeted early engagement on that starting next week.
Both running.
So both running, yeah, they're slightly different topics.
Good question, Councillor Holden. Any other discussion? Because if not, I'll put the motion. I'll put the paper. It's been moved by Councillor Foster and seconded by Councillor Tibble. All those in favour? Aye. All those opposed? Carried. Now, I'll take us to page 429. It's in regards to the Longline Classic temporary alcohol ban at Midway. Thank you very much, Mr. Noble. 429. Moved by Councillor Gregory, seconded by Councillor Foster. So I'll just wait for Tisa to get here. So it's been moved by Councillor Gregory, seconded by Councillor Foster. And we have a question from Councillor Robinson.
No, it's all right. I was just being a dick. I was just going to ask, where on earth do we get the power to make that sort of decision?
Any questions in regards to this paper? It's fairly standard and straightforward. All right. The paper's been moved by Councillor Gregory, seconded by Councillor Foster. All those in favour? Aye. All those opposed? Carried. Good job done. Take us to page 440. Update on FOSAL Category 3 properties. As we can, back again. We ready for this paper? Fine? Right. Cool. So page 440.
So as you would have seen in the paper, we're two-thirds of the way through purchasing the FOSAL Category 3 properties. Demolition is beginning of residential improvements is beginning later this month, and we're working on various things about the future use of the land, both the land being owned by council, that's going to be owned by council, and the land that is remaining in other hands, which is progressing.
Cool, thank you very much, Ms. Villa. This is a noting report, kind of updating us on what where we're at. Do we have any questions in regards to the report? Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, there's $3 million for removal of buildings, etc., which is fully council expense. Is there anything to offset that? Have we sold any houses or something to offset that $3 million, or are we just donating everything?
Through you, Chair, we are investigating the sale of a small number of houses. And also when we move further into the future use of land, there may be opportunities there as well, but there's a policy piece we have to go through first before disposing of land, and that's all subject to council approval as well.
Thank you very much, Ms. Noble. Councillor Parata.
What does it mean to dispose of land?
Sell.
Sorry. Oh.
I just wanted to note how many whānau have now settled, and how many will settle by 2024, which is excellent. I just wanted to know what the 10 full buybacks, the 5 residential locations, so 15 whānau, 15 properties. When are we anticipating that to be settled and completed?
3 more have settled since the briefing was done, so and several more will before the end of this year, and we're anticipating they'll all be done by the end of this financial year, so mid next year.
Excellent, thank you.
Councillor Tibble.
On page 441, point 6, with regard to whenua Māori, that's not covered by the buyout policy, what then is the pathway there?
So through you, Chad, DPMC is negotiating directly with those whānau on behalf of the Crown. So I understand those negotiations are live. I don't know if anyone's finally settled as yet, but they're working through that process with the whānau. So there's no loss of land, but I don't know what the compensation packages for the rest of the residential to live there.
Being handled directly with the Prime Minister in Canberra.
Yes, but I suppose I'm interested in what is the methodology being used there to determine settlement for mana whenua Māori landowners.
Through you, Chair, I do not know the details of the settlement process. I know that they're following a process.
It's H that's leading that process.
Oh, yes, okay, thank you.
Any other questions or kōrero, whānau?
Sorry, man. Please, sorry.
Yes, supplementary question, Councillor Tong?
Supplementary question, sorry, just to me, just as you put your heads down. So, on the disposal of FOSALs, does that mean that that sellout is to general marketplace?
Through you, Chair, you're talking about the land or the...
Yes.
So what we will do is bring a paper to council, probably first asking you about the principles you want us to work to in terms of shaping up a policy that will guide the future use and or disposal and or sale of that land. And we may make it broader to cover other land types as well. We do have a current policy, but it's sort of silent on this type of scenario because it wasn't anticipated.
Okay, one more supplementary. Just want to understand a bit further. So, is it likely that if should it come to sale, that it would be at the market value, or will it be considerably lower in terms of the opportunity to purchase once a new form of category for that land use has been implemented?
All things for you to consider through your, you know, what's most important to us, economic return or something else?
Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Moved by Councillor Gregory, seconded by Councillor Robertson. All those in favour? Aye. All those opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, Buchanan. That brings us to the end of our public agenda. We still have public business to deal with, but I do just want to thank the various Ngātini Ngā Mano that are streaming in online today, but also the amount of community and public participation that we've had at our council meeting. Do I have anyone to move us into public? Yeah. Moved by Councillor Pahuiuriwai, seconded by Councillor Parata. All those in favour? Aye. Opposed? Right, I take us